The Resident Evil series has meant a lot to me for a great part of my life. Its characters and themes have always pushed me to be a better version of myself. So, for the past 5 years, I have patiently awaited for the announcement of Resident Evil 9. I was pleasantly surprised a few years back when instead we got the announcement that one of the all-time greats, Resident Evil 4, would be getting a remake, since it's a top 10 game of all time for me, and its remake joined the original in that list of mine. In fact, I liked it so much I made my longest video yet raving about its qualities, and thankfully many of you seem to agree with the sentiment, as it's still my most viewed video by far. So, before I begin, I'd like to thank all of you for your support, all the likes, comments, and new subscribers. And now, almost 3 years later, after the remake of 4, we finally have in our hands Resident Evil 9, and everyone has the same question on their minds. Where does it belong amongst its counterparts? Is it an all-time great like 7 and 4? Is it perhaps just a solid entry, such as Village and Resident Evil 5? Or could it be a bit of a disappointment like 0 and 6, where it feels too different from the rest of the series? Well, I'm sure the title and thumbnail likely already gave it away, but I myself consider this to be one of, if not the best, Resident Evil game Capcom has ever made. And this overly long video should explain my sentiments on why. So grab yourself a drink and some snacks and get comfortable, cause we'll be here for a while. Also, feel free to skip around using the chapters in this video if there's a particular section you're more interested in. But with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about Leon Sex Appeal Kennedy's latest adventure. If you've seen my videos before, you know I like to include a development history section. But this time around, it will be shorter than usual, as my last video already went over the hype over this game, as we got all the trailers and news, so instead, I want to talk about some of the choices made for this game. The biggest one, of course, being the dual protagonists and their respective camera perspectives. I think that this is the best possible decision Capcom could have made, as it appeals to both styles of play the series is known for, especially with this title being a celebration of the series' 30-year history, as its anniversary was quickly approaching. If you're looking for horror, Grace's portions are the perfect step up from Resident Evil 7, as you feel even less secure in your arsenal, and the level design is much superior due to its non-linearity, more akin to both the Spencer Estate and the RPD. If you're looking for action, however, Leon's portions are an evolution to both his Resident Evil 6 and Resident Evil 4 remake gameplay, with parrying, weapon durability, and brutal executions. And this time around, they really are brutal, as ever since we got our first look at Leon's gameplay, everyone has been editing these scenes non-stop. We did learn that originally this wouldn't be the case for this game, as in a dev interview they revealed this would originally be a Leon-only experience. But since we've already seen him dispatch much crazier situations, suddenly sticking him back into a horror-focused gameplay loop didn't make much sense. And I can definitely see the sentiment behind that, since I don't feel like we ever really got a true horror game as Leon, as even in Resident Evil 2, Capcom was already experimenting with introducing some action into the genre, even if limited back then. One last thing I feel like I have to talk about before we get into the game proper is the ridiculous leak that happened an entire week before release. The spoilers got so bad I began seeing people quoting one of the endings like it was common knowledge, and ruining it for everyone else. I unfortunately did receive a lot of these, which I'll bring up as they appear throughout the story, in case someone has made it to this point of the video and still hasn't played the game yet, and is looking for a review for the early sections to decide whether or not to buy the game. Let me save you some time and assure you the money is definitely worth it, despite all the people who'd have you believe this game is short. It's really not, especially when compared to other titles in the series. All in all, it took me well over 20 hours to complete every single thing that can be done in the game, but many who haven't played Resident Evil until now won't know that these titles are made to be replayable. Not to mention, these games usually get very replayable modes, such as Mercenaries post-launch, so I assure you by the time this video is out, we've likely already had some leak of a DLC coming later this year. Okay, so as I was writing this script, they not only announced the story DLC, but also new content in May, as they will introduce some form of a minigame. My guess being mercenaries, as we already have a roster of characters they can use. Okay, I believe I've covered all the context needed, so it's time we enter the survival horror one more time, 30 years later. The starting menu this time around is several images of Grace's desk and work. This, plus all of Grace's story in the trailers being centered around her mother's murder, really made me believe this game would have an investigative gameplay element to it. Not something too in-depth, but more akin to the case board in Alan Wake 2, where you have to gather clues and place them correctly. Pressing New Game, you get your difficulty selection. And here's another new addition, the classic version of the standard difficulty, which brings back a feature from the classic games, having you use ink ribbons in order to save during Grace's sections. I hope this option is something they will continue to have in future titles, as it greatly affects your gameplay by making every enemy you engage with feel like a greater risk, as the chance of dying may send you much further back than usual. This in turn increases the tension in the game, which is exactly what they were going for in Grace's sections, making this the perfect addition. But now let's get started on the first cutscene, and already they've got me hooked with this new title card format, as it immediately grabs your attention to let you know where you are. Something important for a game that goes through multiple characters and locations. We begin with the same cutscene shown off in the reveal trailer. The branch's director heading towards a young woman typing away a field report, as well as researching into the Raccoon City lockdown being extended to 2040, with headlines saying it's due to reconstruction efforts being slow, which is strange given it's been nearly 30 years since the missile strike. Stranger yet is the last headline that lets us know that the United States has withdrawn from a treaty prohibiting BOWs, immediately letting the player know there is something deeper going on. This is a good way of placing the player in this new character's shoes, as you both begin realizing what's going on. That is, before we're interrupted by the director calling us out by name.
My office.
Coming.
So yeah, this is where we're introduced to Grace Ashcroft, our new clumsy and timid protagonist, working for the FBI. And if you were keeping up with the trailers and reviews, you'll know she's one of the best protagonists we've ever gotten, as she has a unique personality and perspective on all this. Think of her as Ethan from Resident Evil 7, with her lack of experience, but with way more personality. Once Grace enters the office, the player is told about what she's investigating. It seems bodies with the same pathology have begun turning up, and Grace, as one of their best analysts, is needed on site at the Wrenwood hotel. The issue? Well, it seems this latest crime scene is where her mother was murdered almost 8 years ago. Obviously something that deeply bothers Grace, as we see her no longer be able to look the director in his eyes, as well as not being able to verbally respond to him, showing her distress.
Alyssa died 8 years ago. Perhaps it's time for you to face the past. Confront that fear head on. Grace, I won't force you to go. But do you think you can do this for me? Investigate that crime scene and report back to me with your findings. That's all for now.
We cut to a rainy, rather busy street, as we see Grace searching for directions on her phone, and we get a bit more of her timid personality as she apologizes for bumping into someone. which then leads into this gorgeous shot of Grace standing in the rain as the next title card drops. And wow, this game looks and sounds incredible. I know you can't really tell when you watch a YouTube video, but I'm sure you can tell how amazed I am by my immediate reaction to both the passing train, as well as wandering around looking at the shops and other small details. It's scenes like this that really make me appreciate game developers, as a lot of care was put into what is an otherwise small portion of the game, as many people tend to ignore the smaller details and simply rush through. A bit further ahead, you come across some police tape, so you know you're in the right place. An officer comes by thinking Grace is a civilian, and startles her a bit, again showing already that this situation is heavy on her. She stumbles through her words a bit as she searches for her badge, and the cop shows quite a bit of curiosity once he realizes the FBI is taking charge. He draws the conclusion that these deaths must be linked to some kind of infection or terrorist attack. Not a bad guess given how close this place is to Raccoon City. He shows Grace how to enter the area and gives her a warning that the building is condemned and to be careful. Little does he know, Grace was present when the place was ruined. And again, I have to praise how good this game looks, as you can see the light bouncing off the rain running down the alleyway bricks. These are perfect horror environments in my opinion, and more games need to take advantage of them, like the remakes of Resident Evil 2 and Silent Hill 2 did. Further ahead, we find the back door into the hotel, the entire place having trash piling up outside. Going in, we're introduced to a new mechanic for this game, that being the flashlight. Many places in this game will be too dark for you to interact with the environment without a source of light, so you'll have to balance being able to see stuff around you versus potentially others being able to see you. The first room you're able to explore is a kitchen, immediately invoking the start to Resident Evil 7, as that game too starts you off in a kitchen. And much like in Resident Evil 7, you can get some pretty gross cutscenes if you interact with the environment around you. Leaving the kitchen, Grace will hesitate to open the door, as she begins getting overwhelmed by what happened in that very room. Here, you will be prompted to read the investigation report, and we get a new look at the new way they're handling files in the game, as now we get a visual aspect to them rather than it just being text. This report was submitted by another agent, named Kyle Eames, and goes into detail on the body found in the hotel on September 28th, just 2 days shy of Leon's favorite date.
September 30th, 1998.
This isn't the first body found in this condition, as we know of at least 4 others across the United States. And the only thing linking them all? Each one of them was a survivor of the Raccoon City incident, and they all displayed similar bruising. The room we find ourselves in seems to be the lounge and bar area of the hotel, and we can already see the evidence markers showing multiple sets of footprints, and perhaps some sign of a struggle. They seem to lead to where the body was found in the bathroom and... Jesus. Okay, we've entered jump scare territory. Good to know. Heading into the restroom, you can open up this locker, and to be honest, I was half expecting a broom or something to fall out, in the same vein as the Resident Evil 2 remake with its locker jump scare. As you make your way down the stalls, you'll likely realize the body we were sent to investigate is gone. Returning into the lounge is when you'll likely notice this photo of yourself taped to a beam. Flipping it around, there's a message, asking us to talk in room 204 alongside a key. Taking this key will trigger a cutscene, the kitchen door slamming shut, letting the player know they are in fact no longer alone in here. And Grace too realizes this as she begins panicking over what she should do. Me personally, I would have called for some form of backup immediately, since Grace is just an analyst with little to no field experience. However, she does the next best thing, and draws her weapon from her bag. But we can clearly see she's not comfortable with this. The key we just got opens up the hallway into the lobby, and this place is very reminiscent of the eastern hallway in Spencer's estate with the dogs. as the open windows indicate anything could climb inside unexpectedly, leaving you more frightened to push forward. Reaching the lobby, you may step onto some glass shards and hear the crunching sound beneath you. This is the perfect way of letting the player know that the way they interact with the environment in this game actually matters, as later on, sound, and your attempts to avoid producing it, will be a key aspect of the gameplay. You can look around this room and see that despite the lack of damages, the place is still a mess, with cobwebs and fallen frames. You can also enter the office here and gain a map of the place, and unfortunately it does seem like we've returned to the map style of 7 and Village, where the map does not actually show if you've gathered every item in a room by changing colors, but instead it only shows the actual rooms and things you may interact with, such as items left behind and puzzles. Which is unfortunate, as slowly changing the color of every map as you collected every item was one of my favorite aspects of the older games, as well as the remakes of 2 and 3. There is, however, a big positive for this game's maps, and that is just how much detail has gone into them, as you can see the entire furniture layout, and later on even bodies already marked on the map. This is something I really hope they keep doing, as details like this is what makes games stand out. In this same office, you can find a notice of closure that gives us a bit more information as to why the place was closed. They refer an incident, likely the murder of Grace's mother, and some extensive damage. With that all done, you can head upstairs to find the rec room, where people likely played pool and darts, as well as taking note of an exit that leads further upstairs. Opening up the next door with wire cutters, it feels like we've stepped right into a hallway from Silent Hill 2, with how moist and rotten everything looks. A radio can be heard crackling as you approach room 204, and once you enter, you realize it's a news station of sorts, reporting on a body being found linked to a string of mysterious deaths. Are they talking about the body we're investigating? Or could they possibly have found yet another corpse already? The main thing in this room is the bed, as it is covered with pictures of Grace and her mother from along the years, showing whoever her stalker is has been doing this for the better part of a decade, if not more. Reaching out for a certain picture triggers Grace to have a flashback to the night where it all happened. And despite me being ambiguous about Grace's mother, we've all known since the very first trailer that Grace Ashcroft is the daughter of none other than Alyssa Ashcroft, one of the playable characters in one of the first few spin-off titles in the series, Resident Evil Outbreak. She is a journalist who got caught up in Umbrella's web back around the Raccoon City incident, and even survived it herself. She also gets a cool Easter egg in 7 where we can find a report written by her. Well, this is about 2 years after we've last heard of her, and she arrives at the hotel room where she and Grace are staying. By the way, speaking of 7, people are already using free cam mods to check for Easter eggs, and it seems Grace is browsing Reddit, and we can see people theorizing about what really happened in Louisiana, with some claiming that they knew of the giant black monster that showed up at the end of the game, and others claiming that the whole thing was just Jack probably killing his own family and then himself, which feels pretty realistic for a conversation between Reddit detectives. You know, jump to wild conspiracies without any facts. I personally find it really sad that the Bakers will forever have this tarnished reputation, as, aside from Lucas, the rest of the family seemed pretty normal during the prequel DLC. We get to see Grace and her mother are very close, as Grace immediately extends her hand out for her, and Alyssa holds it without Grace having to ask, showing this is something they often do. Alyssa is clearly worried about Grace being locked away in the room all day, but Grace acts like every angsty teen does. The phone begins to ring. Grace reluctantly picks it up, and all we get from the man on the other end of the line is a single question.
Miss Ashcroft?
Yes.
He hangs up. Grace seems pretty unfazed by this as she returns to her laptop without a word, and as Alyssa asks her who it was, the power in the building goes out.
What the?
Alyssa seems to think someone is coming after them, immediately grabbing some flashlights and telling Grace they have to leave. Despite Grace asking her what's going on multiple times, Alyssa keeps saying she can't explain right now. The two run down the hallway, and Alyssa reaches out for her gun before opening the door, showing she is definitely expecting someone that poses a threat to herself and her daughter. You can now follow along down the lobby and see the hotel back in its pristine condition. You'll eventually bump into the manager, who assures you everything is fine, as given this building's age, the electrical panel goes off very easily. He says he'll have it fixed in no time before being rudely interrupted. Holy crap, Alyssa has not gotten soft over the years. She's still very much the survivor she once was. Grace is rightfully scared and panicking now, but before they can keep going, Alyssa hides something behind a painting in the lobby, clearly intending to come back for it when it's safe. Running into the lounge, Grace immediately calls the police. Reporting the death says she still has no idea what is happening, and begins feeling sick while crying.
Murders! Yes. The Wrenwood Hotel. Yes. Hurry, please. The police are on their way. Oh my god. Mom, I feel like I'm gonna throw up.
Here we get a very good performance from both actresses, as Alyssa comforts her daughter.
In and out. Breathe in and out. Oh, Grace. I promise you I will explain this all to you one of these days. Grace. Please know that you are my hope. Never forget that.
What are you talking about?
Just... I love you.
I love you too.
Okay.
Mom, I'm scared.
No. We need to find a way out of here now.
But we don't have any of our stuff,
We
Mom.
can come back for it later, Grace.
I don't.
I apologize to anyone whose favorite character was Alyssa. I mean, holy crap, dude. We already knew Alyssa was dead, not just from the trailers, but from the starting cutscene of the game. But that is one hell of a way to kill off a legacy character such as herself. And I cannot praise enough the performance in this scene, as Angela Santalbano sounds like she had her own mother killed before her very eyes. This cutscene also explains the damages to the hotel, as the hooded man knocks over a lit lamp, setting the entire place ablaze. I was quite disappointed that this was really just a random BOW assassin and not a new character, as the trailers made it seem like he'd play a much larger role in the mystery. The other thing of note here is that he says, "found you" to Grace, not Alyssa, making you wonder which Miss Ashcroft they were really after. We cut back to the present day as Grace grieves her mother again. A phone begins to ring. Okay, it's not the same phone, but instead a mobile one, hidden amongst the photographs. Grace begins heading for the door, before remembering the thing her mother hid behind the painting. You can head down to search for the painting, but the rain outside has quickly turned into a storm, and lightning illuminates the room in front of you, showing a tall figure lurking about. Whoever it was is gone by the time you get to the room. and more noises can be heard as you make your way down. Once you do reach the painting, you can find a small leather pouch containing two things. The first is Alyssa's notebook, where she writes about how the two of them always moved around due to her work, and Grace never got the chance to make friends. The next entry shows us she was somewhat aware she was being followed by that hooded man, and the final entry, on the date of her death, shows us she was coming back to the hotel to leave with Grace, as she was now fully aware of her stalker. That's why she was checking outside the window once she came in. The second thing in the pouch is a floppy disk, with no indication of what it contains inside. Once you're finished inspecting this, the cop from earlier will pop up, his hand holding onto his neck. This cutscene is one of the better ways we've seen someone turn in real time, as we can almost hear the moment he fully turns, when he lets out that last, pained, quiet moan. But yeah, he's now fully turned, and Grace is in danger, as when she was startled, she got her jacket stuck on the bellman's cart. This is also where we first see the effects of this new virus, as the officer keeps fragments of his identity, being able to speak in small phrases, as well as handling his shotgun to stop you from reaching your weapon. You'll have to avoid said shotgun if you want to escape, as he'll keep firing it at you. He even knocks the cart over once you're free, which thankfully drops us the emergency exit keys we needed earlier. Even now, the officer will continue throwing himself against you, and while poking him away doesn't do much, having a rod go through one's eye is sure to... Fuck, never mind. You'll have to quickly run upstairs, but even then you won't be able to outpace him, as he catches Grace just past the door, and she unfortunately has to get her hands dirty and stun him with a shard of glass before throwing him down onto the street. With the adrenaline wearing off, Grace begins feeling that fresh wound in her arm a lot more, but quickly snaps out of it once music can be heard in the background, and she notices a lit lamp, meaning someone is still in the building. She frightfully picks up her flashlight and calls out for anyone potentially lurking about. She actually notices her own fear and calls out a second time, trying to put on a more confident voice. After no one responds, she makes her way up to the next floor, and finds a man sat by a fireplace, listening to some music from a gramophone. This is the game's main villain, a very tall, snake-themed man, with a sick-ass device on his head. He tells us he was the one who planted that body, and Grace is the person he's been searching for. What does he mean by that? Well, see if you recognize this line.
Miss Ashcroft.
The door quickly locks behind Grace, and the man grabs her and knocks her out with ease, being very content with the work he has ahead of him.
Rest now, Grace. We have so much to do.
We cut to black. Meanwhile, a few minutes earlier, in Elbridge, a place not too far from the hotel, we see a cop car pulling in on the crime scene. I won't even pretend to not know exactly who it is we're looking at, as we all know who we're following. That's right, this entry is in fact a dual protagonist game, and one of those protagonists is none other than Leon S. Kennedy. Arguably the face of Resident Evil post-Resident Evil 4 back in 2005. So yeah, I don't think he needs much of an introduction, but if you're new, here's a quick recap.
Holy shit! No!
Yeah. He's been through a lot. Anyway, he's here investigating the same series of deaths as Grace, under his organization, the DSO. I'll also not pretend to not know it's Sherry in his earpiece, as her actress is still the same from Resident Evil 6, and her voice is very recognizable. I know a lot of people are upset Sherry has become more associated with Leon than Claire. However, I will kindly remind you that in the original Resident Evil 2, and its retelling in the light gun games, he was much more present with Sherry. And right after the ending of Resident Evil 2, Leon was the one to take care of Sherry after Claire went looking for Chris in Code Veronica. In fact, the very reason he's working for the government right now is because he gave up his freedom all the way back then in exchange for Sherry's safety. So he's more than earned his surrogate father role. Okay, back to the story. And oh my god, Leon looks so cool with his new coat. While this new body has provided Leon with no leads, Sherry sends him a file on a new person of interest, a researcher named Victor Gideon. And wouldn't you know it, it's our snaky friend from earlier. He has past ties with Umbrella, specifically its research into the infamous T-virus, with his only remaining public information being his directive role at a care center not too far from either of the last two corpses. And while the center has faced no scrutiny from any agency, despite its handling of research in sensitive data, we do know this place was once run by the Spencer Foundation, meaning this is all somehow linked. If you can't tell, I love the lore in the series, especially when it comes to the early Umbrella stuff. So I'm really glad this game is going back to address everything we know of, after Mother Miranda and the connections being introduced in Ethan's saga. Anyway, as Leon learns this information, he pulls out a custom-made weapon by the looks of it, and sort of seems to stare for a second at his hand. Sherry lets him know of the cop accompanying Grace going missing, and that he should maybe check it out. And so, off goes Leon in his brand new sponsored Porsche Cayenne Turbo GT, unknowingly on his way to yet again rescue a blonde in a mission that will test his limits. We cut back to Wrenwood, where Victor is seemingly perusing the streets carefree while carrying Grace. Unfortunately for him, Leon happens to drive by at the exact same time and spots him. Victor looks back at Leon and also seems to recognize him, stopping dead in his tracks long enough for someone to actually question why a 7-foot hooded man is carrying an unconscious young woman. Victor uses these people to create a diversion, as he injects a few of them with something, likely the same thing he injected the policeman with. We see this firsthand, as the first woman injected turns before us and kills an innocent person.
What are you doing?
Well, I guess it's time we got to play as Leon. And the gameplay is a successor to both the remake of 4 as well as Resident Evil 6, as melee attacks make a return alongside having a melee weapon with durability, in this case the hatchet. Jesus Christ, Leon, that woman was a civilian just a few seconds ago. Leon's hatchet comes with the standard slashing move we've had with knives for all these years now, but it also comes with a stronger attack that requires a bit more wind-up. Perfect for finishing off enemies you've already damaged quite a bit. This starting section for Leon feels perfect, as we witness the panic ensuing in the streets, as more and more people turn, and Leon has to try and save as many as possible during this chaos. Something they've brought back from 6 are these finishers where Leon can trigger a special execution based on the weapon being used. Parries are also back, being able to disarm enemies and turn their weapons against them. The only cost to this is durability. However, this is not an issue in this game, given that Leon can sharpen his hatchet at any point, requiring only a couple of seconds. As you make your way forward, you can equip the titular Requiem, and see what this bad boy can do. Yeah, we're so back. This Magnum will obliterate enemies in front of you, as it's able to not only one-shot most enemies, it's also able to kill enemies standing behind your target with a well-placed shot. hold on. Let me try and do this scene justice.
Get Raccoon bucked down. Yeah, he's the one to thank for all the excitement.
Once you've cleared the streets, Leon believes to be back at square one. But Sherry informs him of the care center Victor purchased in the file we received. And this is also where we get the reveal that Leon is in fact suffering from the same thing that took out the other Raccoon City survivors, as unnatural bruises cover his hand. And it's safe to assume Sherry is too, as she too is a survivor. And with that quick cliffhanger, we return to Grace once again. She wakes up from a nightmare, strapped to a table of sorts. And as she begins gaining consciousness, she realizes she's been tied upside down, blood being drained out of her.
Hey! Help!
Here's where we get a first look at her smarts, as the blood vial instantly gives her an idea to escape, as she can smash it and use the fact that it's inserted in her arm to pull the broken glass to her. With her hands now free, she pulls an Ethan Winters and sways the entire contraption back and forth to knock herself down, and giving her an easier way to free herself. You find yourself in one of the many rooms in the care center, and it seems this one was used just to extract your blood. These notes also refer to something called Dexafil being administered to Grace, and my best guess as to what this could be is some sort of antiviral agent that prevented Grace from turning after she was bitten, as that's never addressed. The fact that Victor made sure Grace didn't turn, as well as analyzing her vitals and collecting her blood, tells the player he needs Grace either alive and well, or needs some genetic information out of her. Stepping outside the room, you are met with a reception of sorts, where you can't see much around you given the lack of light. If you attempt to enter the room in front of you, you'll be able to flick on a light switch, but it doesn't work all that well as lights keep flickering. Here you'll also find the bottle, a new item to the series which can be used to draw enemy attention when thrown, very similar to bottles in The Last of Us. It is far too dark to keep heading this way, so instead you can turn around and head for the creepy red light. Always a good sign. Here you'll get a functioning switch, as the corridor in front of you will remain mostly lit, revealing a horse statue in the corridor's end, alongside two side rooms, one with a broken light, and the other with an intricate door design, which appears to require a key. Making your way to the end of the corridor, you'll find a gate to the way out, but a fuse is needed to get this open. At the same time, an announcement will begin to play through the speakers. Something is going down as the staff begin emergency protocols. Here you can find the key with the same design as the door from before and... I wonder what's got those lights swaying. Anyway, here you'll be able to find your very first save room, as signaled by the infamous Resident Evil typewriter. Unfortunately, we don't get to hear the save room theme just quite yet. The save system works the same way it has since the remake of 2, where you get multiple slots and you choose one to save in. This game does bring back ink ribbons on higher difficulties, which, as I mentioned before, I hope is a change they keep, as having to choose when to save makes these games a lot more fun tension-wise. In here you'll also find the lighter, reintroducing this game's light mechanic, as you were able to switch your lighter on and off. We can also see the fuse here, but a screwdriver is needed. With a light source at hand, it's time we head back to that other side. Yep, there's definitely something in the ceiling doing that. I did find this next room to be rather creepy, as this facility so far has been nothing but bland and sterile, whereas this room is full of children's toys, indicating children frequented these same halls. On a children's table you can find a storybook named Shadow Ghost, and here's how it goes. Have you seen the Shadow Ghost, hiding in the dark? Have you seen the Shadow Ghost, staying from the light? Have you seen the Shadow Ghost? Because she's been watching you. The last page containing a bloody message warning you to stay in the light. Let me tell you, reading this in the middle of the night right after the game released was nothing short of unsettling, especially with that drawing of the eyes. I'd seriously recommend playing this game's first half with your best headphones and when it's as dark as possible outside. It completely changes the experience. Well, there's that jump scare I was expecting earlier. Okay, at least we know for sure where the screwdriver is. Also, I'm not crazy. This is definitely a pair of red eyes, right? Okay, nurse's station time. Man, I wonder what's behind this. Yep, knew that was coming. Didn't get me this time, game. I mean, seriously, did you honestly think you could get away with that scare twice? You literally just used it less than a minute ago in the closet. Seriously, you'll have to do much better than a dead infected if you want to get me. At least Resident Evil 2 had the zombie that fell out still be alive. What is that? Oh, I spoke too soon, didn't I? Crap. The light, gotta go to the light, They said the light is safe. Well, so that just happened. I introduce you to this game's stalker, aka the girl. A 10-foot tall, disheveled female monster with large, cloudy eyes. She is, unfortunately, more of a scripted stalker rather than a true stalker, like Mr. X in the remake of 2 and Nemesis in the original 3, as she'll often attempt to cut you off whenever you make progress, such as picking up items or unlocking doors. If spotted, your best chance at survival is to run as fast as possible towards the nearest source of light. During these chase sequences, if you are in third person, Grace will actually trip sometimes, highlighting again that she's different from your standard Resident Evil protagonist, as she often shows real fear. I'll speak more of the girl as we progress, as right now she's very heavily scripted, and will always go away once you enter the light. That is, until after you get the screwdriver from the nurse's station, as after having to maneuver around her in a closed-off room, and once again running from her when spotted in the hallway, she'll actually climb atop your lit room and shut off the light by disconnecting whatever circuitry is up above. This caught me off guard the first time around, as I was now afraid she'd learned how to do that forever, and I'd have to be more careful as to how many more times I could use certain tricks. Unfortunately, this doesn't seem to be the case, which is a shame, as enemies that actually learn and adapt to your playstyle are always fascinating to me. Anyway, with the screwdriver in hand, you'll finally be able to get that fuse. This, however, triggers one last chase sequence, as the girl rushes you and you just barely escape into the very well-lit main hall of the care center. The girl does use her last ounce of strength to drag you back in, slamming Grace against the radiator to weaken her, ending with her back in the dark, with no hope of rescue in sight. Meanwhile, we see Leon pulling into the care center with his brand new Porsche Cayenne Turbo GT. Yes, I will mention that every time, as truly intended by Capcom. And I mean, just look at how good he looks. Seriously, the women who worked on his design deserve a raise. They made an older Leon look just as good as his younger self. Leon decides to enter the care center on his own, and finds the place to be mostly deserted. A nurse does welcome him in, and I like to think she waited there for quite some time to surprise him. She tells Leon he is expected by Dr. Gideon, meaning Leon is likely walking right into a trap, as he notices the doors closing behind him. During his walk with the nurse, he learns that they do experimental therapies in this facility, and that the nurse hasn't been with them for very long. He's told to wait in an office for a while, where we see he's being secretly recorded. Here's where we also get our first look at Victor's face, and he looks so cool. I legitimately believe Victor is the best villain we've gotten since Albert Wesker, aside from maybe Heisenberg in Village. As Leon checks the time with his custom-made Hamilton watch, yes, that is yet another product placement, we hear the emergency announcement come through the speakers that we heard when we played as Grace, showing the player this is happening around the same time. The nurse barges back into the room to tell Leon to leave, and behind her, in walks the doctor. Yep, he's definitely turned, and would you look at that, he's even got a change. Oh my god, Leon, you could have at least tried a little harder to save her. And you especially didn't need to hit that one-liner. I already explained this in my last video, but I definitely don't think Leon let the nurse die, but rather wasn't fast enough at drawing his gun. However, I do feel the one-liner really doesn't help his case. Okay, we're back to a Leon action segment, and we're faced with a chainsaw-wielding zombie. And you guessed it, you can parry those too. Not only that, but once the doctor is defeated, you are able to wield the chainsaw yourself, making clearing the rest of the room very easy. I like the fact that since the chainsaw is still on, the motor will cause it to spin on the spot, which won't allow Leon to pick it up since it'll hit him, but other zombies will do it just fine, as they don't care about getting injured in the process. It's a cool detail. The chainsaw can also create weird interactions where it can get stuck inside other zombies' chests when they get too close to it, and if you then get grabbed by said zombie, it's an insta-kill, as your chest will be pierced too, making these enemies just as dangerous as Dr. Salvador in 4. But yeah, wielding the chainsaw yourself is plenty of fun, especially when you get those finishers where you stick it in them yourself and push the zombies into the crowd, hoping to get some free kills. The last two things I want to mention here is how much more interactive the environment is, as Leon will use walls to finish off zombies in gruesome ways. Leading me into the second thing, which is the sheer amount of blood in this game. If you couldn't tell, blood is kind of a big deal in this entry, so seeing the walls quite literally painted red from your actions is pretty awesome. I need more games to take advantage of the fact they're already rated for adults, so they can commit to making the games more gruesome if it suits the narrative. Okay, Leon, you do know you can unlock the door without ruining the chainsaw, right? It takes like 2 seconds to open those. Anyway, here we'll find this game's destructible collectible, that being the Mr. Raccoons you had in the remake of 2, now with a new coat of paint. Finding and destroying all of these is pretty useful, as it will unlock further gun upgrades for future playthroughs, perfect for Resident Evil's classic replayability, especially at higher difficulties. Moving forward, Leon will come across the same hall Grace was running off to, and hey, wouldn't you know it? It was pretty obvious that Leon would be the one to rescue Grace, as even when they were showing off the demo and Leon wasn't announced as being in the game, I just knew he'd show up at the very last second due to the scene's framing. This scene shows the girl to be quite durable, as it's only on the 4th Requiem shot that her head is pierced, and we've seen what a single bullet of that thing can do. I like the detail that Grace was trying to dampen the sound of the Requiem with her hands, as not only is she not used to gunfire, but I also seriously doubt shooting a magnum that powerful is anything short of deafening. Again, we're shown Grace's timid and frightened personality, as she immediately steps back from Leon in fear.
FBI.
After a brief introduction from the two, Victor Gideon pops up again and decides to separate them. As they run out of time, Leon tries to get some more information from Grace before it's too late. Hold on, pause. What a face card. Anyway, seeing Grace is just as clueless as he is about all this, he decides to hand her the Requiem, as a means of defending herself. Hey, Victor, you do know you locked yourself on Leon's side, right? Okay, never mind. So, Victor is clearly a BOW of sorts. What exactly he is, we'll have to wait and see. Also, that last line is so cool.
Umbrella's curse.
With that, we've finished the game's tutorial. That's right, we've only been on the tutorial so far. We cut back to Grace, standing by the now closed gate, holding the Requiem. And we finally have the classic puzzle box gameplay Resident Evil is known for, where you find more and more key items as you explore each room to eventually escape the place you're trapped in, this time requiring 3 cubes to be placed on this door. And I must say, the Rhodes Hill Care Center is probably the best version of this gameplay loop since both the original Spencer estate and the RPD, as it's much less linear than the Baker House or Castle Dimitrescu. The key to this being key items, as some of them are now used more than once, which makes player have to make more decisions regarding inventory space like they did in the originals. Given this open-endedness, I'll focus more on talking about the level design of each section, rather than breaking down the gameplay second by second. First off, you got your save room, now with this game's save theme, which somehow feels like a blend of every save theme before it, as I at least always got a heavily nostalgic feeling when resting here. You'll also find an item box, which is where you can store any items you please, in order to free up space. In here, you'll also find a returning mechanic from 7, being the ancient coins you can trade in someplace else for both health and weapon upgrades. You can also find clues as to what you are searching for, as you see 3 important staff, each with a different symbol assigned to them, meaning you'll likely have to find their keys in order to escape. A really neat Easter egg regarding this is that these symbols are the exact same used by Spencer in a puzzle in his mansion, those being the moon, the sun, and a star. I personally love small, non-intrusive callbacks like this. And next to this office is a very different kind of room, as we get a cutscene of Grace switching on the lights to find a dead body with a massive gash on his neck, alongside 2 cells, one of which is still being occupied by a little girl, blind by the looks of it. She's absolutely adorable, and I immediately made it my mission to rescue her. The man on the ground is seemingly still alive and uses his last words to warn us to keep away from the girl. I will absolutely not be following that advice, but thank you for the keycard. As of right now, there's not much else to be done here, as opening the girl's cell requires a level 3 access card, and we haven't even found level 1. But a cool Easter egg is that people who actually know Braille have figured out that the book she is reading is actually the Village of Shadows. The same book Miranda was reading to Rose at the start of Village. Okay, time we get into the actual game. The care center is special, due to this new strain of the virus keeping fragments of the infected person's identity intact. We immediately get to see this in action in the first room, the kitchen, where we hear someone hacking away at something. When you go in, you realize this is the chef, a much larger individual still attempting to cook a meal of sorts, but making a bloody mess out of it. This game also reintroduces the ability to avoid most enemies, as you can easily hide or distract infected away from where you need to go in order to pass through without spending ammo. The next example we see of this is a zombie that will always turn the lights off, meaning you can lead him away from you by turning on a different set of lights. Almost every zombie in this game feels unique with their traits, as literally right next door we see what used to be a maid trying to scrub the blood off the broken glass, turning her into a Sisyphus of sorts, as every time she wipes blood off, she cuts herself, leaving more blood behind. Throughout these rooms, you'll find buckets, pools, and even a bathtub filled with blood. And Grace is able to inspect all of these, hinting that you may be able to do something with these later on. As you keep going forward through the available rooms and halls, you'll encounter the dining room. A feast gone wrong, as you see infected eating each other on the table, and begin hearing some haunting singing coming from up above, where you can see a lady in white. Here is where you'll also find your first handgun, as you don't want to be wasting your precious Requiem ammo on regular zombies, especially at this stage where you only have a single round. This handgun is very weak, taking multiple rounds to finish off a single enemy, meaning if you don't have a full magazine, you might as well run. Small defensive knives with durability make a return from 2. These are essential for survival, as not only can you use them to escape being grabbed, you can also use them to gather more resources from wooden crates, vases, and even break some smaller objects containing hidden items. You can also use some durability to damage the infected. How, you may ask? Well, Grace also has a melee attack when stunning zombies, allowing her to push them onto the floor for a few seconds, giving you the perfect opportunity to put the knife to use risk-free. This shove she does, however, deals 0 damage, meaning it's a defensive attack only rather than an offensive one. Pushing forward, you'll find more doors in need of security clearance, as well as other doors requiring more specific items to be opened. Eventually, you will be able to find your way up to the 2nd floor, and in turn discover the source of that singing from earlier. In the center's bar and lounge is this ghostly lady, putting on a performance for both the zombies down below, as well as the 2 men who were probably watching her as they all succumbed to the infection. Your best move is to ignore them for now, as much like the chef, this singing lady is a special type of infected, possessing more health than your average zombie, as well as a unique ability, in this case a screech that can damage you from afar, as well as disrupt your accuracy for a short period of time. Also, remember how I said you need to pay attention to your environment for potential sounds you make? Yeah, well, I completely forgot about that as I removed this coin from the piano and hit the keys. Thankfully, all the infected happened to be roaming on the other side of the room at the time. The 2 final rooms up here are the gallery and the chairman's office. Hey, we were looking for that guy. First, in the gallery, we can find a note confirming we're looking for pieces of quartz to slot in the door, as well as giving you the perfect angle to shoot the zombies in the bar should you so please. I'd personally recommend doing so for the reward in there, Grace's original handgun, which has a significant increase in firepower. I find it really odd that they place the only 2 guns you find as Grace so close to one another, However, I believe most people will put off killing the singer, meaning they'll find it much later than it can actually be acquired. Also, yeah, like I just said, there are only 2 guns you can find as Grace. A bit of a disappointment in my opinion. I didn't necessarily want an entire arsenal for her, but some form of shotgun with ammo almost as rare as the Requiem, or some more weapon components and parts like in Resident Evil 2 would have been nice. Although, I do understand why they stuck only to simple handguns, as Grace being more defenseless is what makes the contrast between her sections and Leon's so great. Right, we got way off track there. Into the chairman's office we go, and... oh. Guess him and his secretary had a thing. After putting the chairman down, you can explore the room freely to find a small contraption asking you for a code related to the 3 celestial bodies. And I immediately noticed the buttons for the code were also written in Braille. This will come back later, so keep it in mind. The code for this puzzle box is in this very room, as grabbing a pencil allows you to shade in a notepad containing the correct combination. Inputting this will give you your first quartz, the moon one, meaning you're 1 step closer to escaping. In here, you can also find a bid note, letting the chairman know a DSO agent will likely come to investigate, aka Leon, and to enact Code 6 at 11:30. Likely the process of infecting the entire center, as the note is signed by Victor and he says he no longer has a need for this place, likely due to his finding of Grace. Why he's letting Grace walk around with all this danger around her is beyond me, especially when he's got hidden cameras everywhere to find her. My best guess for this is that it's to show how incompetent and arrogant Victor and the people he's working with are. Okay, the final key item in here is a small box which, when examined further, can be opened to reveal a red jewel, granting you entrance to the strangest room in this place yet. The parlor. I have no clue why there is a random gambling den in a care center, but I'm here for it. I like when games get silly. Here's where you'll be able to trade in your coins for those upgrades I mentioned earlier. There are 4 to choose from, but if you collect all the coins, you'll have more than enough to get all 4. The first is a hip pouch, an item from the remake of 2, that helps you increase your inventory capacity, making it much easier to carry around all the items you find, and decreasing the amount of backtracking to the item box. The second one is a stabilizer. This injection will permanently increase your firepower and the stability of your shots, making you waste much less ammo in the long run. The next item is from Resident Evil 7, being the steroids, which will grant you a permanent health upgrade, which again will save you heals in the long run. These aren't one-off upgrades, as your inventory shows you can stack these up to 4 times, to turn the difference from marginal to significant by the end of the game. The final prize here is an override manual to remove the limiter from the blood collector, an essential tool you'll find later on. A really cool feature in this room is you can actually place a bet on the roulette table by shooting at a number, and if the ball lands on it, you'll get another ancient coin for your troubles. The 3 numbers the ball will always land on are 7, 15, and 29. This is most certainly a reach on my behalf, but given our leaked roadmap for the series, could this potentially be the release date for Resident Evil 10 on the 15th of July, 2029? Only time will tell. In this room, you'll also get some good game design, as breaking this vase will make you accidentally break this smaller ceramic, revealing a hidden coin, making you realize there's more loot in previous rooms than you previously thought. Anyway, this is where you'll find the card to unlock the East Wing. And while the West Wing focuses on the building's administrative and hospitality sectors, the East Wing is where the patients and medical facilities are located. Just past the lobby, you'll find yourself in the examination room, where you'll be introduced to this game's stealth mechanics, as you can pick up a hemolytic injector, a device containing a special drug that destroys infected blood cells. Well, let's see what it does, shall we? That's effective.
That's effective.
That's what I'm saying. In here, you'll find an open body strapped to a table, wearing an ID wristband for some reason. Looking at the screen next to it, you'll see it's missing both its lungs and its heart. Further on, you'll come across a small laboratory of sorts, where you'll acquire one of Grace's most important tools, the blood collector. This little device can gather infected blood in order to use it in crafting recipes. So, all those pools and buckets from before, hell, even the infected you've been able to take down, now become valuable resources for future crafting. Whilst limited at first, your crafting list will expand as you gather these blood specimens for analysis. As bringing it back here to the blood lab, you'll be able to solve a short puzzle involving nodes and unlock more uses for the collector, such as making ammo, making those stabilizers and steroids, as well as eventually even being able to craft more Requiem ammo yourself rather than relying on finding it. Pressing forward, you'll find this rather ominous room, where you'll be presented with the perfect opportunity to test out that big gun of yours, as 3 zombies stumble down the hall. I really like that your first shot with this gun causes Grace to shake from the recoil, as she is definitely not used to it. And in third person you can even see how far back the gun is sent before she's able to stop it. Right next to these guys is a waiting room that acts as a shortcut back to the East Wing entrance. And it's where you'll find yet another special type of zombie, that being a patient that is extremely sensitive to noise, and has bandages wrapped around his eyes, making him essentially blind, meaning he'll react based off of sound. So, something cool you can do to take advantage of this is throwing a bottle at another zombie and get him to attack them. I believe he one-shots every other enemy, which can lead to some strange interactions where we can get him to clear quite a few rooms for free. Killing him will also provide you with a new resource, that being the blood bags. These can refill your blood collector, making them a useful backup if you're running low, and the only blood left is concentrated around dangerous enemies. Around this point in the game, some changes will occur. First is that both the chef and the singer will now roam a bit more freely, no longer restricted to their rooms. The other is that returning to the child will trigger another cutscene, where Grace will finally ask her some questions about why she's there. The girl tells us that both her and her friend were given medicine that turned them blind, and suddenly she disappeared. I wonder what might have happened to her. We then get this really creepy line where the girl says she's happy it wasn't her. I mean, fair enough, but why did the game feel the need to zoom in on her face like that? She's just a kid, I feel so bad for her. Okay, cleanup time. I returned to the bar and lounge to dispatch the singer, and allowed me to explore this room better. And looking around at all the wines and spirits, I noticed a peculiarly named bottle, which turned out to be an anagram for Veronica, which I, alongside many others, believed to be a teaser for the game's remake. I also found myself Grace's handgun, giving me the confidence to tackle the chef too. He's quite tanky and has the ability to one-shot, which made this a pretty exhilarating fight by looping him around the parlor. Once down, the chef will drop the pantry key, which, you guessed it, opens up the pantry, granting Grace access to not only more Requiem ammo, but also a new charm, which increases knife damage and durability. Honestly, a must if you want to take advantage of knockdown zombies. Returning to the East Wing, you can make your way to the second floor, and find the lead researcher's office, the second guy we were looking for. And yep, there's the next contraption. However, this time it's locked tight, with a note telling us some corrosive is needed to melt away the padlock. The conference room is right next door, and I'm sure this will be a quick trip and hey, we even got our first ID wristband. What was that? A huge, and I mean huge infected, nicknamed Chunk, is now chasing you along the eastern wing, serving as a light version of a stalker enemy, given his movement restriction due to his sheer size, only allowing him to wander into certain places. He will kill you very easily and will take quite the beating. However, with enough ammo, you'll be able to take down this monstrosity, rewarding you with yet another charm that allows you to resist attacks that would normally kill you, giving you a second chance in tough spots. I personally didn't see this as worth it, given it cost me not only a Requiem bullet, but 2 more clips of ammo, so I chose to reload a save and keep him alive. However, had I known how much ammo I'd gather by the end of my time as Grace, I definitely would have stuck with my original decision, as Chunk becomes a bit of a nuisance later on. And yeah, if you time things right, you can somehow get the blind zombie to kill Chunk. I wonder if they'll patch that out. With Chunk now roaming the halls, let's refocus our attention back onto the West Wing, where our new security clearance opens up the area quite a bit more. Not only unlocking some rooms with helpful upgrades, but also the next area to progress. Before seeing all this new place has to offer, however, it's time we make our way back to where Chunk came from, as we still need that corrosive. In the conference room is another singer. However, this time around, instead of a beautiful young woman, you find a balding old lady. So it's time we help her move on. Ooh, that's a critical shot. Nasty. Hey, wanna see me paint the room red? Thank you, Capcom, for gifting us with such a gun. In here, you can find a list of patient records, detailing these special zombies and what's wrong with them, such as the blind zombie suffering from hallucinations, and finding out that the old lady likely developed her symptoms first as the younger woman seemingly began putting on performances in the West Wing to compete with her. Well, we got the corrosive we came for, so it's time we head back into the office and... Hey, Victor! Good to see you. He tells Grace he won't harm her, and begins being really cryptic over why he needs her. He then name drops this game's MacGuffin for the first time, something called Elpis, which immediately set off alarm bells in my head given who Elpis is in Greek mythology. But we'll talk about that much later when it makes more narrative sense. Grace is clearly confused as to why she is needed, and Victor reveals he's actually working for someone. An alarm goes off and we see something is wrong with the bodies in the isolation ward. We then get a cool ass line from Victor.
Would you like to see what's hidden under the hood?
And we also get to see Grace displaying her intelligence once more, as after running away from him, she manages to trick him into believing she left the room by opening the door and staying hidden, causing Victor to have a genuine crash out.
Grace! 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 There's no escaping your destiny.
Anyway, you can now solve the contraption in the office, and the way you get the code is by looking at these pictures and seeing each half of the code in the background. This time, however, you don't just find the quartz, but you also acquire a small notebook, where inside are some instructions on opening the organ transport box you'll find later on. While on the notebook itself, we find some notes on Spencer's research, revealing who Victor's master really is. Which is odd, given he's been dead for almost 20 years at this point. Odder yet is the subject matter of this research, as we see talks of using the T-virus being used to control memories and will, a project he left behind to Alex Wesker back in Revelations 2, where she was attempting to use a new T-virus strain to implant someone else's memories in a different body, essentially saving herself from death. A concept Spencer was extremely enticed by, given his knowledge on Mother Miranda and her ability to remain alive all those years. But it seems they're now closer than ever to achieving this, given their new strain allowing the infected to keep pre-infection characteristics. And my guess, as of now, is that this is all leading up to them cloning and bringing back either Wesker or Spencer for Resident Evil 10. A theory which was only strengthened by a certain mystery character later on. Alright, time to make our way to that new section we opened up, and there's nothing too interesting here. It's a couple of offices with more information on the murder of Alyssa, and just confirming that this was in fact the guys who did it. The room I do want to talk about is the garage, as they give you this big open space with barriers and some crates that weren't accessible as of now, and I immediately figured a big monster would show up to screw me over. Probably the girl, as the trailers had already revealed she survived Leon's Requiem shots. So, after I unlocked the box and got one of the 2 organs I needed, I braced myself, only for nothing to happen. So I started my way back, and... Okay, that's a neat callback to 4, where you have to shoot the guys driving the drill towards you. They even changed this up in Insanity mode, where after you kill the guy, this bulldozer keeps going, and you actually have to shoot the engine too. I like it when games change things like this to keep you on your toes. Ah, so that's what that meant. The other organ is a lot easier to get, as it's just behind one of the starting doors you needed a wrench for. With both organs on you, you can now make your way to the body from before, and... What the hell is that? This game brings back a mechanic from the remake of the first game, that being Crimson Heads, or as they're referred to in this one, Blister Heads. Essentially, any zombie you infected without either destroying it using the injector or by removing its head will sprout some sudden growth and become stronger, faster, and a hell of a lot more durable. Here's me wasting ammo instead of using the Requiem, not realizing just how spongy these guys are. While I like them bringing back this mechanic, I don't think it was as well implemented as in the remake of 1. As when I first fought off one of these guys, I was just kind of surprised, whereas when the first Crimson Head raised itself off the ground, I was legitimately terrified. Once you arrive back to the open body, you can insert the artificial organs inside, and unsurprisingly, the zombie will come back to life. Which honestly kind of reminded me of the intro scene when loading up the first game. Anyway, after it wrangles itself free, killing it will reward you with a level 2 ID tag, meaning the isolation ward is now open to you. A rather large central room with multiple annexed sleeping areas, which is where I assume poorly behaving patients were being kept locked up, as the security manager's office is right next door. The final person we were looking for, hence also the final piece to leaving this place. In here is where we find the details on the blister heads, which shows in some patients there was a double mutation, leading to the tumorous growth on their heads. The next line, however, reveals some have had this occur in their entire body, hinting at a future enemy. In the office itself, we find the security manager slumped over his desk, likely killed during the outbreak. We also find a note with the puzzle solution, so you can easily... Oh, it's in Braille. No worries, every other box had Braille on it, so you can just check the answer that way. What? Why are you looking at the child, Grace? No, you don't need the girl to do it, you can check it yourself, don't put the child in danger. This is one of the few gripes I have with this game. While I understand story-wise why she needs to do this, I feel like this would have been a very simple fix had they just chose to remove the Braille from the other contraptions. As you leave to head back to the save room, you'll find that multiple patients have escaped the isolation ward, as well as more previous enemies beginning to mutate, meaning if you really are bringing the girl back this way, you'll have to find some way to clear a path. Once you get back to her, open up the other cell first to find a porcelain doll near the bed. This will become important. Once you try to open her cell, we once again get to see Grace's smarts, as she hesitates and first asks the girl for the reason she was put in the cell, and if she minds coming in. as Grace too has likely figured out this little girl must be dangerous in some form to be locked up. We now get a cute bonding moment between the two as we finally learn the girl's name to be Emily.
I'm Grace. What's your name?
Emily?
Emily. You like reading?
Yeah.
Do you think you could read something for me? Please, I really need your help.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll take you there. There are steps. How about I carry you?
Grace decides it's probably best to carry her, given she's blind, and I'll be honest, this is the one point in the game where it feels like you're missing out in first person, as switching over to third person, you can see just how adorable these two are. The game now tells you that if there's anything left to do, you can leave Emily resting on the couch, where she'll be safe, and you can go and finish off cleaning up the place for loot. I did this to go clear a path back to the isolation ward, and got blessed with the cutest animation ever as you put Emily down and she searches for the couch. Okay, Emily, I'll be right back. Maybe this game isn't that scary. I always speak too soon. Okay, Emily, all clear, let's go. I shall protect you, child. With a couple of incidents on the way, we managed to reach the security office and let the girl solve the puzzle for us. Hey, wasn't there a body here not that long ago? Yeah, that makes sense. We close the door to keep Emily safe and head outside to dispatch the last few infected that were still locked up. One of them being the security manager himself. And this encounter is scripted as he will always turn into a blisterhead if you kill him normally. So, if you have an injector saved up, definitely use it on him. Also, I know I haven't said anything about it yet, but the soundtrack of this game is extremely well made, as many encounters will have these droning notes with the occasional, almost fractured chord, leaving it incomplete to build the suspense. Once you dispatch every enemy, Emily will call out to you that she's solved it, and walking back, you see the quartz in her little hands. Finally, we can get out of here. Come on! Yep, it seems the girl is back, her head regenerating right in front of us as she steals Emily away, dragging her down below into the basement. Grace obviously feels responsible for her, and drops down too in order to rescue her. Right, I guess it's time to get back to Leon anyway, and it seems Victor is having his fun interrogating him. Okay, quick pause. Look at the detail in his face. How he's got some wide hairs in there. God, I love video games. If you've seen any edits of this game, you're sure to recognize this scene from Victor's thirst traps. Yes, those exist. As his tone and mannerisms are far too familiar with Leon, even carefully brushing his hair aside. I love it when villains act this way before hurting heroes even further, as it adds this layer of unpredictability to them. And yes, Leon is still very much unserious in this situation.
You know, I do have a question. When's the last time you brushed your teeth?
After a bit of stalling, Leon cuts himself free with a hidden blade, and this time around manages to overpower Gideon, even if for a moment, causing him to run away and leaving Leon trapped in the attic. He catches up with Sherry and informs her of what he's learned about how Grace is FBI and was kidnapped. Oh yeah, quick thing, Leon is so done with everything, he's now gained the ability to break the wooden crates with his bare hands. Not the healthiest thing to do, which, speaking of, now that he's lost his coat, we get to fully see this fantastic posture he's acquired after decades of taking hits to his back. Exploring this upstairs area, you'll come across a file detailing a patient with an increased appetite and weight gain to the point where he would ingest everything. Guess we figured out how Chunk came to be. But scrolling further, you'll learn he has a brother, and it seems he too has the same eating quirk. And wouldn't you know it, in the very next room we find him eating away at someone's corpse. At least we get a shotgun out of it. I am a bit sad this wasn't given by Ada, as this is the shotgun type she'd always have. Anyway, time for the first boss fight. Much like his brother, Chunk is very tanky, and his large size means he struggles with fitting in certain passages. Be careful, however, as he will still try to grab at you through the doorways. Your goal here is to stun him in order to hack away at his head with your hatchet, and dealing enough damage will enrage him, causing him to break down walls around him, as well as reveal more loot and different pathways for you to take. The best way to deal with this is find these broken ladders, as Leon can jump to them and gain an advantage on the high ground, allowing him to knock Chunk off the edge before he can climb it, and giving you this cool takedown shot, likely killing him right then and there. He'll drop a new item, that being the grenade, which was first introduced with Leon all the way back in the original Resident Evil 4, as the only other grenade item previously was a flash grenade in the GameCube remake. Further along, you'll find a pistol part to increase the alligator snapper's firepower. This is sadly only one of 2 weapon parts you'll find naturally in the environment, as every other one is earned through a different method. Rather unfortunate, as one of my favorite aspects of 2 and 3, and especially in their remakes, was finding multiple parts per weapon, making me feel like I was organically improving my arsenal. The place you find this part in is a wardrobe with warped doors, which you've seen all around the place as Grace. So it's no surprise when you drop down this opening and find yourself in the care center, being able to loot up anything you haven't as Grace, because this game brings back the mechanic from the original Resident Evil 2, where both characters share the same world, meaning what you do as one affects the other's playthrough. For example, if you take down the chef as Grace, you'll find the pantry already open for you, whereas when you leave him alive, you'll have to take him down as Leon, even getting a reference to the merchant from 4.
What the fuck are you cutting with that thing?
What you need that for? Going hunting an elephant?
Once you've finished looting up as Leon, you can head to Victor's office, which you couldn't reach as Grace, once again due to the warped wood. But now, with Leon's trusty hatchet, you can head inside and find the mess left behind by him, where even Leon is disgusted by it. These guys will all turn into blister heads, making this a rather difficult encounter, as Leon doesn't yet have the weaponry equivalent of a small army, so you'll have to make better use of parries and hatchet executions. Killing them all will have Leon drop yet another one of his iconic one-liners.
Well, that's my cardio for the week.
You're able to find a hidden passageway behind a painting in the office, something early entries were known for. And in here is a secret elevator that leads directly to Victor's private office. Sherry tells Leon to lock up Victor's computer so she knows which one she needs to hack into, and a cool detail is Leon very clearly uses his name to do it. When we cut back to Sherry, we see something on her screen resembling the map and the objective marker, meaning this entire time, even in Resident Evil 4 with Hunnigan, Leon also sees these markers, not just the player. I always find it cool when gameplay elements fit nicely into the lore.
Bingo.
Ha! She said the line. In the computer, Sherry finds files detailing their illness, confirming they are both infected with the T-virus. I cannot imagine how hard this must be hitting Leon, as now it's not only his life in danger, but also some of the people closest to him, as almost everyone in the incident is like family. The files also mention Elpis and Grace's involvement, giving us a couple more breadcrumbs to keep us invested in what's going on. But with that, it's time we head into... Grace has fully made her way down, and even seems to start getting over her anxiety.
Hang on, Emily. I'm coming.
You can also now view the files from Victor's laptop, with a thorough analysis of Leon's illness and its progression. It's been dubbed Raccoon City Syndrome, and it's essentially residual T-virus taking its time into mutating into something more harmful. There is no treatment as of yet, and all cases were fatal. Once active in Stage 1, it produces the black bruises we see Leon displaying, as well as other mild symptoms like coughing. As it progresses, however, these marks will begin spreading, which we've begun seeing in Leon too, meaning he's somewhere between stages 1 and 2. The final stage is its most dangerous, as severe pain and fatigue, as well as vomiting blood, begin drastically affecting the person infected, with the warning that people at this stage have between 1 to 2 hours before they die. Not the nicest way to pass, that's for sure. It's time to head deeper into the care center's underground, where you start finding chains and bodies, something unusual for a hospital's basement, which Grace also takes a note of. Coming across a security room, you'll find the hospital surveillance area, as around a dozen televisions were used to display camera feeds, with the only one still being active showing Emily in a cell of sorts, surrounded by dolls, alongside a document which reveals the monster's name as the girl, as well as explaining her weakness to light, making it pretty clear what happened to Emily's friend, as she more than likely became this monster, and she probably took Emily because she wanted her friend back. I would say this part of the game is similar to the boat in Resident Evil 7 or both factories in Resident Evil 8 and Resident Evil 0, where the game becomes extremely linear as you gather items to delve deeper into the area. The gimmick this time around is you need to gather 3 power sources if you want to unlock Emily's cell. The danger is much less focused on the zombies and much more on the girl, as she's returned to her stalker role, this time being slightly less scripted, as loud noises such as gunshots can draw her attention. The way you get around this is, whenever you collect a power source, you can use it in a different room, not only to open it up, but also turn on the lights in the area, stopping the girl from being able to follow you there. So, while most of the time you feel pretty safe, it's the hallways between the rooms where you need to pay attention, as sometimes she'll climb out of her vents directly in front of you, and if you didn't clear a place beforehand, or some new zombies come back to life, you're more than likely to either take damage or have your head bitten off by her. That is, unless you found yourself a new item, the Molotov cocktail, capable of not only killing zombies in groups, but also stun the girl for long enough to be able to run away. Like I said before, this basement is rather strange, as while you have things like boilers and furnace rooms, you also have the cell area. A pool full of blood, a room where bodies and live zombies are hung and transported like animal carcasses, and finally you have an industrial-sized meat grinder, where all these bodies are turned into blood, and by the sheer volume you see, you start to realize just how many victims have fallen prey to Victor's research. Once you drain said meat grinder, you'll have to survive for a minute or so, as zombies come to life in this conveyor belt, and you'll have to make sure you're not grabbed, as even a second of not moving away from the grinder can lead to a quick death. Once you acquire your final power source, you'll fall into this pipe full of blood that leads directly into that pool from earlier. This leaves you completely covered in red, and I cannot even imagine the smell. With all 3 power sources in hand, you can restore power and open up the cells, which also lets all the zombies free. Grace grabs a hold of Emily and has to sprint all the way to the elevator, as sirens begin blaring in the background. Once you get to it, you put Emily down, and have this moment where the elevator isn't shutting, and you narrowly escape the girl, her screams scaring Emily. Well, it seems the girl isn't quite done yet, as she will crawl up the shaft and tear open the top of the elevator, trying to claw at you. Thankfully, you've reached the ground floor, and you're able to get Emily out as well as yourself. But not without difficulty, as the girl holds onto Grace's leg and attempts to drag her back in. the cable holding the elevator in place snaps, and we get this horrifying scene.
Let's play.
I mean, holy crap, her acting is so good. I legit thought her leg was cut off. And then she gives this small laugh of relief. I mean, come on. We started this series with cheesy slasher movie lines.
Stop it! Don't open that door!
So, seeing the games evolve into being this cinematic and so well acted is honestly amazing. Emily and Grace ask each other if they're okay, and Emily reveals she kept the quartz safe for her. And this scene just breaks my heart as the two embrace each other after everything that's happened. After picking Emily back up, Grace asks her if she'd like to leave with her, as it's unsafe, and Emily agrees. If you turn around, you can pick up the girl's severed hand, which I won't explain right now, but it's part of a secret puzzle that took the community a few days to solve. You can now exit the care center and enter its courtyard, fitted with a fountain, a cabin, and even a helipad. Emily begins feeling unwell and becoming unresponsive, worrying both Grace and myself, as I was already completely attached to her. The helipad still has its helicopter parked there, and would you look at that, another human being. He comes off as threatening at first, but once he realizes you're not infected, he seems relieved. He's missing one of his legs, instead wearing a prosthetic, and he's also the pilot of the helicopter. He offers you a deal. Go inside and get the keys in exchange for a ride out of here. Without any other options, Grace agrees. She puts Emily inside, and it's clear something is wrong with her, as she immediately lies down. But there's also the chance she's just tired, as the start of the basement was already past 3 AM, so it's likely past 5 AM at this point, and Emily hasn't had any sleep. With Emily strapped in, you'll be able to enter the guest cabin. In here, you'll find the visitor records, showing someone working directly with Victor came in recently for a project review. And while we don't get a name, we do get an initial. Z. I immediately went through every character's name in the series in my head, and the only person I could think of was Zoe. An unlikely candidate, as she not only has no actual biology knowledge, aside from her experience with the mold, but she was also never presented as a villain during Resident Evil 7. With this in mind, I entered the VIP suite, which was more like an office, where a lot of Easter eggs and cool details were present, such as early pictures of Spencer's orphanage, the care center, as well as a bottle of wine from none other than Lady Dimitrescu herself. Here we also learned that this group, whoever they may be, was powerful enough to get the United States government to extend the Raccoon City blockade to 2040, confirming Grace's investigation into the correlation between the two events at the very start of the game. And again, we see Elpis being of importance. To move forward, you need to insert something to complete this DNA double helix model. And while at first you may be led to think you need to use this hourglass, it doesn't actually fit. I thought maybe you had to remove the wooden part off, and while I was examining the hourglass, I noticed inside was a small inscription reading U equals 380,000. And again, while I won't explain it right now, I immediately figured it was something to do with that puzzle I had begun with the severed hand. The actual solution to the double helix is rotating the wine bottle until it looks right, and opening it up finds the missing piece. Once placed into the model, you'll get quite the surprise realizing this entire room is actually a secret elevator, as the floor begins descending further and further down into a secret laboratory. In the lobby here, you'll find the second half of Spencer's research, going over the idea of transferring the memories of great people onto new vessels. And here we get the reason behind blood being such a big deal in this game, as there is some research which shows that some information may be stored within blood, such as descendants of certain atrocities in real life showing altered stress hormone levels. Thus, Spencer theorizes that with the T-virus affecting and controlling certain elements of blood, it may be possible for memories to be transferred. I feel like these files were basically made for people who didn't play through Revelations 2, as this was the entire plot of that game. Heading downstairs, you'll find quite the gruesome sight, as you see a crap ton of tubes containing bodies, with blood being extracted into this massive container. I kid you not, I was so desperate for any reference to Wesker, I looked at this first guy being blonde and thought this was an experiment to clone him. That's how badly I wanted him in the game. There's nothing in here explaining this contraption, however, we can infer this is the blood they're using for their experiments. Once you get to the facility's private lab, you'll find Grace's blood report, showing that her blood is seemingly the exact match they've been looking for. Why do they need her blood exactly? I don't know, man. I don't think the villains know themselves at this point. There's also a really weird final note, which, again, is clearly part of that puzzle, as why would anything in blood be measured in light years? Thankfully, we do find the helicopter keys in this room, meaning it's just a short walk out of here and we can finally escape. Well, not quite, as Victor happens to be here at the exact same time as us. And while he doesn't spot us, he does make our life a bit harder. He's on the phone with someone named Zeno, revealing who that mystery guest from earlier is. He talks about Grace's blood report and how she's the one they've been looking for, and how this will help them get Elpis. We then get the funniest moment in this game, as Victor begins laughing, only to storm out.
I've done it.
What he triggered was the self-destruction system every single facility in this franchise seems to be equipped with, meaning you gotta get out fast. But with Victor taking the elevator, you have to find another way. So back into the blood chamber you go, and yep, everyone is free. Thankfully, in this room there are several dispersal devices containing that purple liquid used to blow up infected cells, making this a cool set piece where you have to make your way through dozens of infected. Eventually, you'll find yourself on the other side of the testing room, and the whole thing comes crashing down, flooding the entire place with a crap ton of blood, triggering every infected in the area to mutate into blister heads. Making your way up, you'll begin being slowed down by even more blood pouring down the stairs, showing just how much they collected over all this time. And once again, Grace is completely covered in it. I feel so bad for her. She was a desk analyst all this time, and this is what her first day on the field is like. You can now run back to the helicopter before all the infected from the facility follow you. Henry will begin powering things up, but it takes far too long. And oh my god, poor Emily. She's covering her ears to stop being scared. Eventually they get the helicopter to take off, but it's too late, as the infected have climbed on top and begin smashing themselves against the glass to get it. Grace decides to send the helicopter crashing down to shake them off, but instead causes them to, well, crash down. And yup, there goes Henry. Who could have possibly predicted that? Grace then checks on Emily and, oh no. No, do not do this to me, game. Ending on that cliffhanger, we return to Leon's POV, and hey, would you look at that? It's us! Lucky for Leon, Gideon just so happens to keep a rifle right next to his desk, which he uses to scope out what's happening. Get it? Because of the scope. What? I can do one-liners too. Leon can see Grace grabbing Emily, who's thankfully still alive, but now the two are surrounded. Leon makes his way across the rooftop of the center until he comes across another balcony. Wait, hold on. Thought you could hide from me? Once he's got a clear shot on them, Leon begins holding off the infected, as Grace tries her best to break down the chapel's door. This is a good sequence to get the hang of the sniper, as all the enemies go down in a single hit, allowing you to practice on a lot of enemies without burning through too much ammo. Once Grace finally breaks through, Leon makes his way down in the coolest way imaginable, by taking out a zombie with his landing. God, he's so cool. And he's mine. I know all the gooners are after him, but I love him more, so hands off. Anyway, as Leon, you'll also make your way inside the church to find Ashley trying to stop Emily's bleeding. With Leon being reunited with them, I definitely felt a lot more confident in Emily making it out fine, especially after he reassures Grace.
We're gonna be okay. Yeah?
Before they can make it out, however, more zombies keep popping up, and Leon chooses to stay behind in order to protect Grace and Emily. Here's where we get our first look at the evolved blister heads, and holy crap, that's a goddamn bloater! I mean, come on, it's the same, down to the orange weak spots. Well, lucky for me. I've played both Last of Us games more times than I can count, so let's make quick work of you. Okay, don't get cocky. Whilst looking very tanky and also dealing a lot of damage, these guys have very obvious weak spots in these orange sacks. Deal enough damage and you'll either rupture them or get a melee prompt, where Leon will break them with a single kick. You'll know you've ruptured one where you get this huge blood mist explosion. I quite like this mini-boss arena, as the church crumbles down in real time, and you can't use the same escape routes twice. So you better make the most out of any environmental advantages you have while they last, especially the explosive canisters. Finishing off the fight, Leon will begin going after Grace. So how about we see what she's up to, and holy crap, it's 6 AM already. Or as Wesker once put it,
The new dawn is breaking.
which will be pretty important in just a bit. Making my way through this water treatment plant, I was terrified this was going to be a sewer level, which, if you've seen some of my other videos, you'll know I am not a big fan of. Thankfully, this is a short section, as the girl appears once again, and Grace decides to put her down once and for all. And you, as the player, will also know it's the final stand, as the game arms you with 5 Requiem bullets, for you to use as you see fit. Make your way out of the room, and Grace will lock Emily inside, in order to keep her safe. And, you guessed it, with dawn breaking, we can finally expose this monster to sunlight, and finish her off. Only thing stopping you is the power distributors, requiring a restart, giving you one final stalker segment, as you have to traverse the facility to find each lever you must turn. Each of these will have a scripted trigger, making the girl pop up right as you reach them. Nothing a hand cannon shot to the face can't fix. My favorite of these is when you find a terminal without a lever, and once you acquire it from the room next door, it will trigger the girl to jump through the window, grab you by the head, and throw you to the other side of the room. Having her actually fight back makes this feel like more of a boss fight. You can now quickly head back up and open up that hatch, and watch the girl burn in the sunlight, with a single shot putting an end to this fight. And yeah, this scene is quite gruesome, as we get some more of those good old mold physics from Resident Evil 7 as she melts away. Okay, time to check on my dearest child. Capcom? Please don't do this. This scene was incredibly upsetting to watch when I first played the game. I mean, I had been playing non-stop for over 8 hours by now, and had gotten quite attached to these characters, so seeing Grace desperately try CPR on Emily was very disturbing. Even more disturbing was what happened next, as Emily's hand twitches, giving the player the smallest glimmer of hope that she's alive, before she begins convulsing and transforming into what is likely one of the most horrific monsters in the series. And again, props to Grace's actress as she manages to look heartbroken and terrified at the same time. She tries to appeal to any fragment of Emily remaining, but it's pointless, as this creature immediately tries to harm her, but is stopped by Leon. Grace begs him not to hurt her, but Leon just tells her he's sorry. And I'll be honest, I couldn't do it. I didn't shoot a single bullet at her, but unfortunately the game will eventually force you to anyway. Okay, let me pause right here, cause this cutscene is a really good one. I would like you to pay close attention to all the emotions you can see Grace display in such a short amount of time, as stuff like this is what makes this entry be, by far, the one with the best writing and performances, as you see someone who we know is alone in this world, and is likely riddled with guilt, has the one person she managed to form a bond with be lost in the same way, and you can hear the anger in her voice as she starts blaming herself again.
Emily! I wanted to save her!
You don't understand it.
No, I never would have escaped without her. This is all my fault. Again.
Look, I get it. Trust me, I get it. But we're still alive. We have to keep going.
No.
Grace.
Yeah, this game is something special. Unfortunately, our boy Leon isn't doing too good, as it seems he's advanced to the next stage of the illness, meaning he's not got much longer left if he wants to survive this. Also, the music playing during this cutscene is absolutely perfect, as we get this slow build-up to the big reveal of this game. And let me tell you, what a reveal it is.
Elpis is within reach, Grace. I'd like you to come with me.
Come with you.
Well, you feel lost, but you're not. You're exactly where you need to be.
I cannot put into words how excited I was when I saw who looked to be Wesker standing right in front of me. If you watched my last video talking about this game, you know that Wesker's return is the main thing I want from this franchise, as I find him to be one of gaming's best villains. So yeah, getting some form of him back was enough to let me forget about Emily having just died, as I was now beyond excited to find out how he linked to all of this. And I won't beat around the bush, but this isn't actually Wesker, and while we don't get a full confirmation as to who or what he is, the most likely guess is that he is a clone of Wesker. This officially marks the halfway point of this game, as you're presented with a screen asking you to save before carrying on. So get ready, because this half is where the story really picks up and starts connecting to the rest of the series. We open with Sherry washing her hands and get the not-so-secret reveal that she too is infected, which we all guessed from the trailer anyway, when we saw her wearing a glove. She makes her way back to see Leon's progress on his route back to Raccoon City. We see him pass the very same gas station from the start of the remake of 2, and his Jeep is very much still there. I wonder if he noticed that himself. Leon asks for more information on Elpis, but Sherry hasn't been able to find anything yet. Stranger yet, when asking for higher clearance on this, not only was she denied, but was also requested to stop the investigation in its entirety. Again, hinting that someone much more powerful is pulling government strings to get what they want. Likely Wesker's clone, and anyone he might be working for. While Leon tells her to back off in order to keep her safe, Sherry refuses, telling him they're in this together. A nice parallel to how they started this entire thing together as well, back in Resident Evil 2. So yeah, time we get started on Leon's half of the game, and enter Leon comes to a stop as he runs out of road to drive his brand new sponsored Porsche Cayenne Turbo GT. And Sherry lets him know she's been able to track Grace and Victor, and they're en route to the center of Raccoon City. I immediately opened up the map and was bewildered to see what looked like an open world map, with all the locations in the game so far. This isn't the case, however, as Leon's half is less open world and more of an open level. If you played The Last of Us 2, you'll recognize this level design, as it's very similar to the start of Seattle Day 1, down to the premise of getting a big gate open. Before you hit this open-endedness, however, you'll first have to fight this game's first real boss. To confirm the game wasn't open world, I tried getting back in the Porsche, and that's when I realized the game wouldn't even let me aim my gun at the car. I don't even want to know how much Porsche paid them to have it so prominent in both the game and the marketing. On the streets, you'll find some remainders of things from the incident, such as missing person posters and newspapers detailing the start of the outbreak. This is quite the haunting sight, as even Leon remarks that the city seems to have been frozen in time after the bombs. The file that hit the hardest for me here is something exclusive to the deluxe edition of the game, those being the 1998 letters. These are files detailing the journey of a child in search of her father during the incident, as she leaves small notes behind for her mother to find. This is quite the heartbreaking story as you follow in her footsteps. The first one tells us she snuck out and went to the gas station. Moving forward, you'll begin seeing quite a lot of spiderwebs. And if you've got arachnophobia, I deeply apologize for this next part. This game is full of callbacks, so my guess is this is a reference to Black Tiger, a giant tarantula of similar size from the very first Resident Evil and its remake. This fight is a lot more frantic, however, as you get chased through this dilapidated building, with the spider crawling after you through windows and tight corridors. The place is also full of webs, which you'll need your hatchet to cut through. The spider's babies are also in the area, but they're pretty much harmless as long as you clear them from a distance. Leon will make the incredibly smart decision of heading further up the building to fight this thing, finding a more open area to do this in. The spider's weak spot is very apparent, as it has this bulbous stuff on its back. This fight is pretty easy once you've stunned it, as you can get a lot of damage in before finishing it off with an explosive barrel. Leon will end the spider with his hatchet after falling through multiple stories, giving us a great cinematic shot, and of course, another one-liner.
I miss our Raccoon City hospitality.
This fight was actually hilarious to me, because if you didn't know, this enemy was somehow leaked all the way back at the end of 2022, as I clearly remember at the time hearing people say the remake of 4 would feature a new enemy being Sadler's pet spider, which always sounded ridiculous to me, as that was not a thing in the original. So finally, seeing this leak come true well over 3 years later felt extremely cathartic. Now that we've dispatched our first boss, you'll reach this big wall that was put up to quarantine the city. There's a big locked gate here with what looks to be explosives set up to open up the way, giving you the overall goal of acquiring the missing parts to its detonator. And here is where we get the open level design, as these couple of city blocks are mostly open for you to explore in any order. You have a sort of home base in the area, being this camp with a blue tent, where you can find the locations of each detonator part. Why these were carried to completely different points is beyond me. If you power up this camp, you'll realize to who it belonged to. The BSAA. The last we saw of these guys, Chris was mounting a rebellion against them for using BOW soldiers. Both Leon and Sherry are intrigued by this, as there would be no reason for them to be in the area, with Leon finding a laptop showing they too were headed to the city center, which prompts Sherry to reveal one of the series' biggest twists.
That reminds me. I dug a little deeper in the Pentagon's database and I noticed something's missing.
What's that?
There's no record of anyone ordering the missile strike on Raccoon City.
It seems the missile was ordered by a shadow government of sorts, and we already know Victor is working for these guys who managed to extend the city's quarantine. So, whatever they're headed to in that helicopter is important enough that they would trade 100,000 lives for. Here is where we also find out the clone's name is Zeno. So, this is who is staying at the care center's guest house. Victor also reveals Zeno is responsible for trying to shut down Sherry's appeal for clearance. And so, Zeno sends Victor after us, and we get him doing this little twitch thing, hinting at his true nature. Okay, time for some additions to Leon's gameplay. First, his save point is the BSAA laptop rather than a typewriter, meaning no ink ribbons required. I'm okay with this decision to make the action segment save automatically and not require an item, as a lot less planning goes into going inside a room guns blazing compared to classic Resident Evil's methodical item management. Which, speaking of, the briefcase from 4 is back, more recently used in its remake and Village, where items will take up realistic space and you'll have to manage your inventory around said space. They do unfortunately also bring back the auto-sort feature, which I'm not a fan of being on by default. I'd love this to be off by default and having an accessibility setting for this, as moving things around in the original 4 is so fun, someone made a whole game out of it. The new addition is this tracker item, which gives you credits for every kill you get. These credits can then be exchanged at this item box in order to acquire new weaponry, armor, inventory space, as well as sell and tune up weapons you already own. Unfortunately, even the merchant lost his job to AI. I am very sad by the fact there's no actual person selling all these items, as it kind of removes the charm of upgrading your weapons knowing you'd get a funny comment from one of these two fellas. However, I do understand why they went for this, as 1, they are trying to show that this city is truly dead by having not even a friendly merchant set up shop here, and 2, it wouldn't make much sense for enemies to be carrying around cash given their lack of intelligence and how long ago the incident occurred. The weapons offered in this game are disappointing, if I'm being completely honest, because each gun feels like a complete upgrade rather than a different type of gun. In Resident Evil 4, each gun felt unique, making the argument between which handgun you'd use a valid one, as you could opt for more firepower or more penetration, a stronger shotgun or one with more range. These all felt meaningful enough where whatever choice you made could better suit your playstyle. In this game, however, the handgun is a straight up upgrade, the shotgun is a straight upgrade, and the only 2 weapons that aren't those, being the submachine gun and rifle alternatives, simply make you choose between firepower and fire rate, which, when it comes to submachine guns, barely matters. This is a shame in my opinion, as they made the Requiem feel so unique, and then every other gun felt very standard compared to previous titles. I know I've been listing a lot of negatives, but trust me, Leon's section still slaps. I'm just highlighting the few flaws it has that personally put both the original and remake of 4 above it in my eyes. Okay, once you're ready, you can start exploring the area, and the gameplay loop is what you're accustomed to from Resident Evil 4. Every time you enter a room, you'll likely face a group of diverse enemies in order to constantly keep up the action. Some will be plain unarmed enemies, while others will be armed with different sorts of weapons, ranging from clubs made from debris to spears and even some chainsaws. The fact that zombies are still around is an issue though, as the entire point of the missiles was to sterilize the area of them. At least, that's what we were made to believe it was. We also get to see the return of yellow paint, but now used in a much more subtle way, as ladders and things you can shoot tend to be wrapped in yellow, but not in such a way where it feels like someone painted the whole thing with yellow paint. I never understood the hate for yellow paint, as I always felt like it was a good way for developers to guide the player to interactable objects. As graphics get more and more advanced, and it's harder to notice at a glance what you can and can't interact with. Once you reach the top of your first building, you'll be able to acquire the first of the 3 detonator parts. We also get the return of Leon's binoculars, being able to find all the points of interest you need to visit to progress, that being the other 2 detonator parts, as well as a gas station. While Leon carries on his search, Sherry lets him know she'll start looking into the BSAA, to see if they can figure out what's really going on. As you continue to explore, you'll be reintroduced to a mechanic from the remake of 4, those being stealth kills. Yes, I know technically they come from 7's DLC, but mechanically they are just a continuation from 4, using up your hatchet's durability rather than your knives. Also, the animations are so much more brutal. You'll use this mechanic the most in this flooded underground parking area, where you get this cool gimmick of being able to open up trucks and face the risk of either finding supplies or more zombies. The other area nearby is a sewage facility, where you get one of my favorite gameplay moments, when you begin opening up the way forward with a valve, and you slowly see another one of those bloater guys waiting for you on the other side. Eventually, you'll find your way out from this building, and come across the bodies of an entire BSAA squad. Leon hooks up one of the soldiers' body cams, and we get gifted with a fantastic cutscene. We see the squad getting ready to move, and 2 of the soldiers are discussing the real intention of the missiles that wiped the city. The leader speaks up and says that they're headed to the center of Raccoon City, in search of a place called Ark, and their objective, just like the villains, is to retrieve Elpis, basically solidifying the BSAA's newfound evil. Here's where we get a proper demonstration of Zeno's power, as he takes out the entire squad one by one, each bullet blowing entire body parts off. Only complaint I have here is how a direct shot didn't explode the guy whose body cam we just watched. I mean, there should be a big hole where his head used to be. Zeno and Grace have arrived at their destination without Victor, letting the player know they can expect to see him soon. Okay, back to exploring. On one of the squad's bodies, Leon finds a key to the BSAA containers, 2 of which you've already seen if you were paying attention. These contain a ton of useful items, including a semi-automatic sniper rifle and a charm perfect for said rifle, as it gives a damage boost to rifles without scopes, turning this into a pretty reliable mid to long range weapon, being able to pop off enemies' heads with singular shots. The only mandatory container is number 2, next to home base, where not only will you find a repair kit for the detonator, you'll also find a motorcycle, Leon's vehicle of choice in the CGI movies, which got me amped up for a potential Vendetta-style sequence. If you explore the apartment the BSAA came from further, you'll find that they brought these missile launcher turret things. I don't know, man, I'm not a weapons guy. Anyway, what matters is they brought in heavy weaponry, expecting a fight. And if you head inside, you'll find that many of them have turned, armor still on, making them even spongier than other enemies. Worse yet are the ones who still have their helmets and weaponry, as they are able to tank headshots as well as be able to fire their guns at you. And whoa, that is one hell of a gun strap. Yeah, during the first couple of days post-launch, this glitch was going around, where weapons would suddenly have their straps ignore physics and remain perfectly straight. This took me out quite a few times once I got it, and I tried my best not to have these guns out throughout my recording, but if you do see this again, you'll know why. Hey, wouldn't you know it? A crank in a Resident Evil game. Who could have guessed? You'll also find some more BSAA zombies, now in possession of hand grenades, which you're able to shoot at and make them explode. Make your way to the very top of this building, and you'll find yourself facing the launchers from before, now being operated by infected, making this one of the cooler sequences in the game, as you have to dodge and take cover from the numerous explosions around, as you make your way up to get another detonator part. And yeah, you guessed it, you can operate these yourself, making for some really easy kills. On your way out, Sherry will mention the Pentagon clashing with the BSAA, and the North American branch moving independently, with Leon telling her of an internal dispute as he likely heard it from Chris himself after he established his Hound Squad. Up next, we got the gas station, where not only are we looking for gas, we're also searching for another message from Meryl. She mentions finding one of her father's friends and how he will take her to the police station. First, including that spelling mistake to show us this is in fact a very young child is evil of you, Capcom. Second, her being taken to the station may begin to make you realize who this could be. The gas station is another cool sequence, as once you find the can, all hell breaks loose, with you once again being able to grab a hold of a chainsaw. Alright, time to go on a rampage. Ah, shit. That's brilliant game design in my opinion, as the developers knew you'd get greedy with the chainsaw, and immediately take some heavy damage by not being able to shoot the canister in time or dodge it. After some time, another zombie wielding a chainsaw will show up, but this one is outfitted with some armor. No clue how he got that, but it leads to quite the similar fight if you've played Resident Evil 7, even being able to parry each other's chainsaws in this dope as hell shot. You'll eventually be able to pierce through his helmet, ruining your chainsaw in the process. And with that out of the way, you can finally fill up your gas can to open up new areas. The first is an underground subway tunnel, leading you back to the start to get that charm I mentioned of the container. And on your way back, Sherry will bring up the incident and how Leon feels about it.
Hey, Leon. Do you still think about what happened there?
Every day.
That night. I was just a kid. Scared and confused. I'm supposed to feel the same right now. Sorry. This isn't the time. We need to focus.
It's sad seeing something that happened so long ago still affecting these characters. Goes to show how traumatizing that night was for the two of them, especially Leon. The second area you can open up is back at the first building you visited, opening up a gate to a zipline, a point of no return for an extended sequence, so make sure to stock up and get all the upgrades you may need. This section starts off pretty calm, exploring a collapsed office tower, finding this new mechanic where you can break boards blocking off doors, and even using this new mechanic to make debris fall in the right way to jump across. Also, I really like the jumping animation, even if it doesn't get much use besides this. The only way forward is to eventually climb inside the elevator shaft. And yep, you guessed it, the elevators come crashing down, so be careful. This will then lead to you sliding down onto the building's glass panels that used to make up the windows, and you'll get introduced to yet another mechanic of being able to shoot and break these surfaces, causing anything on top of them to fall to their death, making this one of the best encounters in this game, as you can have quite a lot of fun dropping zombies down in groups, especially if you shoot one holding a grenade. Although, be careful not to be standing on glass yourself when you do this. And there you go, last detonator part acquired. And while there wasn't that much fighting on the way up here, it's the way down that's the issue, with the game even giving you another save point and item box to make sure you are prepared. The goal is pretty simple, ride this platform down. The problem? You need to lower both cranes holding it. And once again, you guessed it, there's a crap ton of enemies to deal with on the way there, including yet another Chainsaw Man. Riding the platform down is kind of frustrating in my opinion, especially on repeat playthroughs, as you have to wait every now and then for zombies to fall down so you can kill them. I'd much rather this worked like the one in 4, where enemies dropping down is what causes the mechanism to stop due to the weight, instead of having sections where the platform just freezes for no reason, and there's nothing you can do other than look around and wait. Once enough zombies fall down, the platform's cable will snap, and you'll face another small horde in the rubble. Hey, watch this, parry. This is also the perfect spot to use any grenades you may have left. Once you're out, you'll be able to blow the gate up, leading into one of the best set pieces in the series. That's right, you do in fact get a Vendetta-style sequence riding this bike. While you don't get full control of the bike, you are able to move it slightly left or right. The reason for this is right up ahead, as we see Victor on his own bike with an RPG trying to take you down, alongside a new type of infected dog. And just like in Vendetta, you'll get to take these down while riding the motorcycle. The game allowing you to have infinite ammo for this section, so you can have fun. Every now and then, Victor will pop up to shoot his rockets, and if you damage him enough, you can stun him to prevent this. However, some of these rockets are scripted in order to cut off your way forward. No worries, as Leon will ride his bike across rooftops and narrow alleyways to cut back around, eventually leading to Leon's very own boulder punching moment, as he decides to ride this bike up the side of the skyscraper, and yeah, he does in fact make the jump. I actually had this moment spoiled to me during the game's leak, but it looked so ridiculous I genuinely thought it had to be some other game and someone just modded Leon onto it. Literally something out of Devil May Cry. Once you make it back to the highway, Leon will fight Victor more directly, by throwing his hatchet right onto his gas tank, leading to this cool head-to-head confrontation at the end of the road.
Come on.
Well, I guess that's that.
Should've worn a helmet.
God damn it, Leon, you almost died. Okay, it's time we make it to... Pulling up to the coordinates, you should immediately be familiar with where you are. That's right, the very start of Resident Evil 2. You can even see the tanker that blew up and caused Leon and Claire to split up. This area is obviously one huge callback, but the design is that of the remakes and not of the original, which makes sense given most people haven't played the original. In fact, you can line up this path exactly 1-to-1 with the remake of 2, and there it is, the RPD. Walking up to the gate, Leon does the unthinkable in these games. He actually unlocks the door from the other side instead of wasting time finding a way around. And hey, wait a minute. The bars are different. 0 out of 10, this needs a remake ASAP, Capcom. Jokes aside, the following cutscene is great, as Leon relives his trauma.
It's on you now.
god, the music is so fucking nostalgic. Move towards the statue and you'll trigger a cutscene, which changes based off which side you walked up from. It seems this is where the other BSAA squad set up base, with a board again mentioning ARC and pointing at the orphanage as a potential entrance. No fucking way that sign survived the missile. If you don't know, in the original Resident Evil 2, there was a sign welcoming Leon into the RPD, but it was misspelled with 2 L's. This is referenced in the remake with the sign, as you can find the extra L on one of the desks. It's again brought up in the remake of 3, with Carlos pointing it out.
Yeah. Welcome, Leon. Bet you had a kick-ass first day.
Holy shit!
And now, after a city-wiping missile in almost 30 years, this sign manages to survive. This time, both L's being missing. Next to the sign is a note saying you can't save anyone. So I like to think Zeno took Grace here, and then asked her to wait while he went to the room next door, took down the sign, and wrote this little note just to mess with Leon. I mean, who else would have written this? The BSAA doesn't care enough. Through the cameras, you can see Zeno and Grace in the Eastern office, leading you to be able to explore a good chunk of the RPD again, with a crap ton of Easter eggs everywhere. So, let's get through them. First, we got the item box and typewriter in their original spots. In the West office, you can find Marvin's desk, where you'll find a notebook where he's organizing Leon's welcome party. And if you check his nameplate, you'll get this sweet moment of Leon reporting for duty to him. I'm not teary-eyed, you are. Ah, good memories fighting Nemesis here. The locker back here will have the name Jojo written on it, a reference from the original Resident Evil 2, where this locker can be seen behind Marvin. This is because Capcom actually made a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure game around the same time. Make your way deeper into the RPD, and you'll find an officer who somehow remained in the building all this time. And on killing him, Leon will say this.
Rest easy, officer.
Man, Leon is still his old self, no matter how much trauma you put in him. Down the same corridor, you can find a corpse missing its lower jaw, which, if you remember, was from the liquor cutscene in the remake. The operation room's walls have mostly come down, exposing another Mr. Raccoon, but this one is actually behind some wooden boards that you likely placed yourself back in the remake of 2. The record of events file from the remake is also found here, which gave me a weird deja vu moment as I recognized what was written. Make your way up and you'll find the unicorn statue, and hold on, let me check if the solution is correct. Hey, not only is it correct, it's the solution for the second run. Whoever was in charge of the RPD section should be proud, as all these details are great to find. Head to the STARS office to be bombarded with these. First up, Albert Wesker's office. The STARS picture is still here, but now Leon will say something about them, given over the years he was definitely made aware of the mansion incident and how Wesker sent these people all there to die. Okay, Wesker, let's see if you're still perving on Rebecca. If you didn't know, inspecting Wesker's desk 50 times in the original reveals a secret film roll which, when developed, shows rookie cop Rebecca in a less than modest picture given the context of where we found it and Wesker's age. By the way, this isn't what this picture actually means, as confirmed by the devs themselves. Before anyone gets mad at me, I know Wesker isn't actually like that, although there is the Wesker mode in 0 where Rebecca has that red mind-controlling device from 5. I'm sure the developers meant nothing by that. Anyway, if you do the same in the remake, you'll find the exact same roll of film with the exact same picture. Well, let's see if the tradition is kept. Oh, that's new. It's just a book Wesker borrowed from the library on the herb the series is known for. I wonder what... God damn it, Wesker. Seriously? Anyway, the cabinet has a photograph for a small treasure hunt Barry set up for Jill and Chris, and solving it gets you the key to the JoJo locker, where Barry hid a STARS charm, increasing firepower and sway while aiming, as well as 2 tickets to the zoo. Listen, Capcom, it's been long enough. These two have been just friends for almost 30 years now, when we all know they're more than that. I know you're capable of committing these characters to a relationship, as we see at the end of this game, so please just get on with it. I expect these two to be together in Resident Evil 10. I know you're building up to a game in a similar style to 6, with multiple campaigns, but done right this time around, and Jill and Chris would make the perfect duo. Do not waste the opportunity. In this cabinet, you can find a lot of references to old games, including the original Resident Evil for the PS1. Okay, wait, I can figure this one out. In the Resident Evil universe, people like Leon and Chris are semi-celebrities, and they made games about them, and that's how Breaking Bad can exist in the universe, even though they talk about Resident Evil 4 in Breaking Bad. There you go, continuity fixed. Okay, back to the store's office. On the desks is each character's iconic item. Jill's beret, Rebecca's first aid kit, so on, so on. On Barry's desk is his to-do list, showing his friendship with Jill and reminding us of his 2 daughters. They must be well over 30 by now. Who knows, maybe we'll get to play as Moira again one day. In the armory is a locked suitcase requiring 3 letters. Well, what do you know? Inside is another charm, these being Wesker's shades, which give limitless bullet penetration to the Requiem and increases the power of its last bullet. If you make your way back down from here before moving on, you'll actually run into this little fella. That's Tofu, a character from Resident Evil 2 and its remake. He appears in the Tofu Survivor, a parody of the 4th Survivor, where you were first introduced to Hunk. Go back down the corridor from before, and you'll run into a familiar sight. Someone's lost a lot of weight. Okay, time to head back up to the library and collect the jack you used back in the day. Wait, does that mean... Yup, Leon canonically fell through the floorboards. With the jack in hand, you can open up the eastern gate, and as you move through the halls, you can hear Zeno and Grace talking. And once you reach them, Zeno exposes a larger part of the conspiracy in this game. It seems every single country on Earth has been sending squads to Raccoon City to try and get their hands on Elpis, something with the power to upset military balance. And that is Spencer's final virus, one able to control human consciousness. Well, after the outbreak in the city, they couldn't let it be stolen. That's what the missile was for. To cover up the whole ordeal, a weapon worth hiding, even if it cost over 100,000 lives to do so.
When the president tried to investigate, they had him assassinated.
Whoa, big lore drop right there. Whoever they are, that Zeno works with, they were the same ones that had the president assassinated in Resident Evil 6, and orchestrated the outbreak responsible for yet another missile being used in a populated city. That's how far they've gone to get their hands on Elpis. Whoever these guys are, they sure must have a lot of connections. Zeno then says Grace is the key to all of this, and pulls up a picture of Emily. And then another picture, and another, and another. Looks like Emily was one of many attempts to clone Grace. We now get the infamous bad part of every Resident Evil game. If you don't know, each game has a big, slower section that you can't skip on repeat playthroughs, slowing you down when you start speedrunning and doing challenge runs for achievements. Think the boat in 7 or Ashley sections in 4. Well, this is Requiem's bad section, where you'll play as one of these clone girls in the orphanage back in 1990. Wait, if Grace is underage in 2018, she wouldn't even be born in the 90s. How the hell is this a clone of Grace? Maybe Grace is the first successful attempt? Regardless, the girl wakes up to some arguing and noises outside her room. Looking around, it seems all other girls in the room are gone. And making her way to the room next door, you find one of these researchers surrounded by multiple girls. Hair removed and multiple incisions on their heads. The researcher, being armed, attempts to shoot one of them, but she regenerates almost instantaneously. They then grab a hold of him and snap his neck. The girl we play as yells at them, but instantly regrets it, and you have to run away and hide. This is what slows down these sections, as once you hide, you can't do anything other than wait for them to search around for a bit and move on. Going back to the researchers, Chloe will begin to panic as she finds dead bodies. And if you remember Sherry's section in 2, you'll know your way around here. You'll again get a section where you have to hide as the girls break through the glass and fall from the second floor. Then, one more hiding section after you try going past the hall. And finally, one more once you get the exit key. Yep, this was a bit overdone. Anyway, with the key in hand, you'll be able to open up this hatch, which leads into a strange underground chapel and crypt. And behind it all is, you guessed it, Umbrella. You can't quite reach the ladder out of here, however you can open up the crypt, where you'll find all these coffins, where each one of the clone girls would be placed. Climb these and you'll make your way over the fence to get a fire poker, to bring down the ladder. Before you can make it there, however, the girls will arrive from the orphanage, and others will climb out of their coffins, and so you have to run past them as they laugh and scream at you. Up here, you'll have finally found one of Umbrella's labs, with their signature sterile white walls. You can find a report on Spencer's attempt to transfer his memory using these girls as test subjects, with Chloe, the girl you play as, being more than stable than the rest so far. The next file reveals this is Ark. While the first half has the researcher describe the creepiness of it all, with little girls carrying those surgical scars, he quickly changes his tune once he's allowed to freely test on them, going as far as to say his entire body is filled with anticipation. Sickening. The hallway next door has these orange spheres, each containing a developing fetus. And if you check the slides at the end, you'll realize each one of these is a clone of this little girl, showing us how they're all artificially manufactured. One of the researchers catches Chloe and sedates her, but as soon as he sees that she could also turn, he immediately instructs for her to be disposed of, like her life is now worthless. We cut back to the RPD, where Zeno tells Grace that she is the original, and with her, they'd be able to get Elpis. Also, I love how you can now see Zeno's yellow eyes behind the sunglasses, the same way you were able to see Wesker's. All this new information sends Grace spiraling, as she now realizes everything that happened was her fault, and that her mother is most likely not even her real mother. And she starts panicking more and more, Leon finally revealing himself, and calls out to her, which prompts Grace to say, and I mean, I see it. Okay, time to see what Zeno is all about.
What the?
Mr. Kennedy, I had a feeling you'd make an appearance. Sorry, but I don't have time to spare.
Holy crap, I called it.
Have fun.
I love how casual Leon is over seeing a tyrant, since he's already faced a couple before.
I remember that, too.
The Requiem never ceases to amaze me. Thankfully, the fight is far from over, as you'll now have to escape this tyrant in the RPD, making this a proper callback from 2. Hey, remember how Mr. X was introduced in the remake by pushing the helicopter aside? Well, check this out. Jeez, glad to see the gory death animations from 4 are back. Each time you think you're rid of him, the tyrant will break down another wall to surprise you. But eventually, you'll be able to exit the eastern wing, and he's seemingly given up going after you. Hey look, it's the pamphlet from 2. Okay, from your elevated position, you'll be able to exit out the RPD's back. This street also being present in the remake of 2. Head down to the garage where you first met Ada, and you'll be able to find a charm of her teddy bear keychain, making shotguns better at being ranged by sacrificing their close-range firepower, essentially turning any shotgun you have into the riot gun from 4. Make your way down the street, and you'll be able to enter Kendo's shop, where Leon will once again remember yet another person he could not save. When he opened that door, and you see those small bones and skull, I felt terrible. And then having Leon apologize despite none of it being his fault, man, that's enough to make me teary-eyed. That emotion quickly changes to anger when you hear the tyrant above you, and Leon feels the same way, dropping the vow of, "Never again. Fuck yeah, let's do this." And we have one final gift from Kendo, as we get the W870 back from RE2. Okay, Tyrant, let's run it back. On your way out, you'll find another note from Meryl, where she says her father was mad at her for going to the police station, and that he didn't let her in. She says her and her father's friend decided to head to the garage, but it seems he got bitten on his hand. Leon himself starts putting it together whose daughter this is. So you make your way back to the garage, and a new note will appear. Mr. George is likely infected and heavily bleeding. She says she's headed to Kendo's store and asks for anyone reading this to help her, revealing she is in fact Marvin's daughter. If you now return to the small alley by Kendo's shop, you'll find a pair of children's shoes, as well as a blank note. Next to it is another charm. The description revealing it was a keychain Marvin gave his daughter.
I'm sorry I was too late.
That's it. I'm getting my get back. Let's do this. The fight starts with the tyrant revealing himself atop a building, removing a chopper's missiles and hurling them at Leon with enough strength to detonate them. I love Leon's reaction to this.
I couldn't save them. But I can stop bastards like you.
The tyrant will then hop down and Leon shoots the missile, removing his limiter and starting up the real confrontation. That's right, we're skipping straight to the final form to see how far Leon has come, as what was once the final boss is now fodder to him. And this fight is awesome. The tyrant has some really cool moves that you can parry, sometimes triggering this cute animation of him looking at you, almost like he's impressed you managed to do that. The fight is simple. Hit the heart with enough damage to stagger him, and you'll be able to hack away at it. The second phase is a bit tougher, as he'll begin throwing cars at you, as well as pull off a move identical to the tyrant in Damnation. I mean, come on, this is fan service done right. This causes Leon to be stunned, and you'll have to mash if you want to dodge his next attack. I also like the voice line Leon gives when his health is low,
Not yet.
showing he's fine with dying, just not before he completes his mission. Stagger the tyrant a second time, and you can finish the fight, the tyrant's heart exploding before your very eyes. You can now head to the orphanage and make your way down to a subway station. And while I'm not 100% confident on this one, my guess is this is the station from Resident Evil 3, especially with that derailed train. At least it's definitely a reference. As you explore the train, you'll see these huge vines breaking through, trying to attack you, sending the entire carriage crashing down to a lower section of the station. Here, you'll find the previous BSAA squad's gear, where you can rappel down. And while at first I didn't realize what the vines represented, I definitely remembered what this was when I saw how huge the plant had become. This was Plant 43, If you don't remember, the first Resident Evil game and its remake feature Plant 42, a plant that grew to great sizes after being injected with the T-virus. Well, the sequel also has the successor to that plant in Plant 43. This huge, extremely creepy thing that takes up a huge section of the laboratory. The remake features a much smaller version of this plant, but it is crazy to see just how big it got over the decades. As you make your way past these tunnels, you'll have to shoot a lot of these vines that come to harass you. Eventually, you'll find yourself facing the plant head-on, as you begin finding much larger vines in your way. And shooting them reveals the plant's main organ, I guess. Much like Plant 42, it will expose itself for a few moments, where you can deal damage before closing its petal-like structures back up, and making you have to dodge its tentacles. Once enough damage is dealt, it will knock open a container full of explosives. No one-liner? I'm surprised. Hold on, let me try it. Huh, guess that fight really got fired up. I'm a bit sad that the IV enemies don't make a return, but I guess it wouldn't have been worth it for such a small segment, as the walk between the first vine and facing the plant head-on takes like 3 minutes. But with that out of the way, we've reached this massive, really cool looking gate that opens up with the sickest animation ever. Well, I guess it's time we make our way inside. In here, Leon will immediately find some cargo, with both the Umbrella and Tricell logos, which is really cool since we haven't heard of them after Wesker's plan failed in 5. These guys are the ones who originally funded the BSAA, so it makes you wonder what's really going on between all these different agencies. Ark, like I said, has the same sterile white look as the Nest labs in the remakes, equipped with the same containment tubes as those too. The crates here also get a new look to make them seem futuristic. The computers in here, however, still seem to be the exact same ones from the 90s, giving a nice contrast of technologies new and old. To progress further into the lab, you'll have to unlock these doors by accessing the terminal in the server room. And I don't know about you, but I have played enough third-person games to recognize natural cover when I see it. And with the report you find earlier mentioning guards, I could just tell I'd be engaging in a firefight soon. Reaching the terminal, you'll also have access to the cameras of the facility, revealing Zeno and Grace to be in a large round room named Pandora. Ah, I see the name Elpis was purposefully chosen after all. I won't spoil the surprise though. And yep, there are the guards on their way to kill Leon. And if you pay attention, they're wearing Umbrella security service gear, something a certain Mr. Death also wears. Okay, I saw this coming. Send them in. Nothing? Oh crap, never mind. The lights go out and you have to face these heavily armed and armored agents. The best way to engage is to blow these smoke canisters and use that as cover for your attacks, as they'll actually try and flank you if you allow yourself to remain in one spot for too long. Well, that was pretty easy. Yeah, saw that one coming. Again, you have to face more of these guys, but this time, when you're done, even more will drop in from above. One is even holding a riot shield, which your bullets won't be able to penetrate. You can either do the usual smoke strategy, or my preferred method, which is, if you look closely at one of the containers, you'll actually find yourself a liquor, and you know how much those bastards hate noise. set him free, and watch the guards be taken out by it rather quickly. The only issue is you then have to take it out yourself. But given you can parry now, slicing off their tongues makes them far less deadly. Okay, that's all of them, leaving you with a straightforward path to Pandora. Here you'll find the official Ark entrance employees would have used rather than coming in from the loading dock, and the design is phenomenal, showing off each layer of the human body as well as having them in these cryptic poses. The final thing here is the guest lounge, where you'll first find a report showing that after the incident, Ark was changed into using Raccoon City's unique environment to test out BOWs, particularly those of the new T-virus strain. We're also told that this is the primary manufacturing center for these in North America, and that they are very much still being sold, not only benefiting the company, but the United States also, showing us how corrupt the government is. The other two computers here give you a detailed list of products they sell, aka BOWs. And now we get to play a fun game of how much money did Leon cost Umbrella? Okay, so that will be 16 dogs at 480 million, 14 liquors at 196 million, Plant 43 at 100 mil, and the Tyrant at 120 mil, costing Umbrella a grand total of $896 million. Or well over $1 billion if you include the final boss. That's sure to put a dent in their profit margins. Congratulations, Mr. Kennedy. They spent the GDP of a small country to stop you, and it still wasn't enough. One thing of note, however, is the mention of a nemesis, with a negotiable price. This BOW is based off the original nemesis, and is now being mass-produced, which is definitely not a good sign. I mean, we've seen what one of these can do, and how much firepower it took to bring it down. Okay, time to enter Pandora. All that's left is a hallway. No biggie. Is that motherfucking Hunk?
I'll neutralize the target myself. Leon Kennedy. We finally meet.
Holy crap, what a way to bring back a fan favorite. This is this game's equivalent to the Krauser fight. You have to fight Hunk hand to hand, or rather, hatchet to hatchet, as every shot you fire will have him dodge it. And as we all know, in the Resident Evil universe, melee attacks are far quicker than bullets. This fight is really cool, as Hunk shows respect to one of the only other survivors of the incident, by allowing Leon to get back up and have a fighting chance. I've heard a lot of people say Hunk wouldn't do this, and that this is a clone, which is stupid, as he displays signs of infection, which is what makes me believe he knows Leon too is infected, and therefore he wanted the fight to be as fair as possible to prove himself. Also, for all the Hunk deniers out there, it's the same voice actor, he's got the same neck snap move, and he disappears once you kill him. So he's definitely still alive. But yeah, this fight is really cool once he causes the smoke to fill the room, and you two have to dodge his gunfire. And then it ends with this brilliant execution, with even Leon remarking Hunk's skill to Sherry. Overall, this was a fantastic way for them to shine a light on a character that's mostly been in the optional minigame so far.
Ran into trouble. This guy was one tough bastard.
With Hunk taken care of, you can actually get his hatchet, named Mortal Edge, which again confirms this was in fact Hunk, and we just fought him. But with that, you're now able to finally enter Pandora. And what a sight it is. The entire room is made up of those spheres containing fetus clones. Zeno is attempting to convince Grace to help him, even bringing up how controlling other people is already a thing, with Wesker having done it with Jill. They believe that Elpis will help this ability to spread from host to host, and by they, I mean the connections. the shadow organization that's been built up since Resident Evil 7. They were the ones who sealed Raccoon City, as they wanted Elpis for themselves. The only problem in their plan is a password-protected terminal, which, if it were to receive the wrong input, would lead to all of Ark being destroyed. Zeno, believing Grace, knows this password. Okay, let me shut up and let you enjoy this fight.
Aren't we fancy?
God, Zeno just overpowers him so easily. It feels like exactly what would have happened to Chris if he didn't have the plot armor of Wesker toying with him. Grace, once again proving her smarts, does the reasonable thing of pointing her gun at her own head. After all, Zeno can't afford to have her die, allowing the briefest moment for Leon to think up a plan and bring down this huge device with the Requiem. Leon then grabs Grace and the two of them come crashing down onto a platform of sorts, leading them to this place's dump site. Leon's not doing too well, progressing to the infection's final stage and passing out, meaning he's got an hour or so at most before it turns fatal. Some unknown time later, we see Grace cradling herself by an unconscious Leon. Once he wakes, Grace asks him why come here if he's this close to dying, and we get a brilliantly acted cutscene between the pair.
This place. Raccoon City was where it all began for me. When it all happened, I couldn't make a difference. So I am here now.
We can't stop Zeno.
He said something about you having a password. What was he talking about?
I don't know. I'm sorry. Here.
I'm going back. I'm gonna destroy Elvis.
I'm coming with you.
No, you're not.
I don't want any more regrets. Whatever it takes, count me in.
Whatever it takes to save this city. Count me in.
I can't just leave her.
I'm not just gonna leave you here. What if you're attacked? What if you need help? There was another off strike. I couldn't.
I wanted to save her!
You don't understand it.
No, I never would have escaped without her. This is all my fault. Again.
Look, I get it. Trust me, I get it. But we're still alive. We have to keep going.
If anything happens to me, you promise you'll end this.
I promise.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself in adding those parallels. My theory is Capcom is introducing these new characters to take over once Leon and Chris are too old to keep fighting. And Grace is the perfect example of Leon's story, but with the twist that her experience in Raccoon City leaves her a happier person. Hell, I saw a lot of people saying she was his secret daughter, so people were already drawing parallels between the two before the game was even out. If this is the direction Resident Evil is headed towards, I will be more than happy to have this series keep going on forever. The next walking segment made me feel awful, as Leon is barely holding himself together from all the pain he is pushing through. The two have to split up once again to open up a door, and so we start our final Grace segment, with her telling us,
Once I go down, there's no getting back up.
well, here goes nothing. You'll first find yourself in the dump's control room, which requires an override key to open up the way for Leon. meaning you gotta head upstairs into some of the lab's more dangerous rooms. A map shows you to get back to Pandora, you'll have to get an elevator from the archives. But not so fast, as the door directly ahead is locked, so you'll need to take a quick detour beforehand. You'll hear a warning that there was a containment failure, and it won't be long till you come across your first licker. This feels much closer to the fear I felt when first seeing these creatures, as once again I'm playing as someone not heavily armed with either weaponry or experience, turning these creatures back into being extremely scary. As usual, they are blind, so unless you make noise, you should be able to move past them without a fight breaking out. Oh, crap. This right here was one of the most tense moments I've undergone in a game. Seeing that licker right next to my face, right after stepping on glass, made me hold my breath the rest of the way through. Leaving the sterilization chamber, you'll find this room full of what looks to be zombies in containment. Kinda obvious they'll eventually break out, but I'll cut you some slack, Capcom. There are only so many ways you can introduce more enemies in a closed space such as this. Keep heading forward, and you'll find the licker's worst nightmare. A bottle full of acid. If you ever played Resident Evil 2 and its remake, you'll know how much acid hurts these things. So don't hold back in using these to clear rooms, and make travel between them easier. In here, you'll also find the override key, which not only opens up Leon to progress, but also lets you grab a magnetic key, used to open up those purple doors you saw earlier. More lickers will start showing up as you complete your objectives, so be careful. Gaining access to the archives door, you'll find the umbrella symbol in black and white, with 2 round slots for something to be inserted. To open up this door, you'll need to find these 2 orbs, one red, one white, which kinda reminded me of the whole Red Queen AI, if anyone remembers that plotline in Umbrella Chronicles. The red orb is back where you found the lickers, and unsurprisingly, the zombies do break out of containment to attack you. The white orb is instead guarded by multiple lickers, as like trucks in Leon's segment, you get to open up these storage containers, and gamble on whether you'll get good stuff or an enemy. Throughout this entire area, you'll find a couple more files explaining what's going on. One is a transcript of the 51st Assembly between Xeno and the State, once again confirming the US government's involvement in all of this. And given they are now aware of Grace as an individual, it makes you wonder if she was sent to Wrenwood Hotel on her own on purpose. Once you've acquired both orbs, you can slot them in and light up the umbrella symbol, opening up access to the archives. Most computers here will be off except for one, going over the first assembly, from back when the outbreak occurred, and someone with initials KD ordered a missile strike. I looked through every game, and the only character with those initials is the dead helicopter pilot found at the start of 1, so I seriously doubt that's him. Maybe this is hinting at a future DLC, where more about what really occurred is revealed. The defense, however, is pretty easy to guess, most likely being Simmons, now that we know the connections is behind the plot of Resident Evil 6. Okay, make your way to the main terminal and you'll see some more creepy stalker pictures the connections took of you. Interact with it and a floppy disk will be ejected. Guess it's time to find out what Alyssa hid all those years ago. It's a bunch of video files, most unlabeled apart from a few. The creator, letter from Patrick, interview notes, and one named Grace. Grace clicks on the first one, and we see Alyssa interviewing none other than Spencer himself.
Shutting yourself away in a dark room like this is quite the change for you, after the life you've led.
Life takes unexpected turns, don't you think?
Looking back, do you feel that the choices you've made have contributed to your present circumstances?
Of course. What you sow, you reap. Isn't that the natural order?
So, tell me, Lord Spencer, what would you like the world to know?
The truth. But A short break before we begin, Miss Ashcroft. I'm not a young man. I don't have the energy I once did.
This first file doesn't reveal much, other than Spencer now leading a quieter life. But the next video, that one's big. Anyway, let's see what Leon's been up to. And, yep, still looking rough. Come on, Leon, don't die on me. Capcom wants you to do this till you're 90. That means you still have a solid 40 years of games left. Him getting worse is reflected in his gameplay, as sometimes he'll suffer through some temporary coughing and fatigue, slowing you down and making it harder to fight. His lab section is much like Grace's, where he'll have to go through one of these big rooms full of liquors. It's fine, you can finally get your payback for all the deaths they caused you in 2. Once you clear them out, you'll find the key for the elevator that takes you straight to Pandora's entrance. Be careful though, as the room will have a pack of liquors on the ceiling waiting for you. Once you unlock the elevator and wait for it to get to you, you'll have yet another burst of his infection at the worst possible time, as multiple zombies escape their capsules. I'm thankful this mechanic wasn't used too much where it got annoying, and instead simply added some momentary flavor to the gameplay. Once inside the elevator, Leon will start exhibiting even more signs that his death is fast approaching, as you get this walk similar to the one in 4, where he's trying his hardest to push through the infection in an attempt to save the day. He'll eventually reach Pandora's steps, but looks too weak to carry on, giving us this sick shot as we cut back to Grace. She clicks on the file with her name. It's again the interview with Spencer, and is where we get the game's twist.
My research opened Pandora's box, unleashing disaster upon the world.
Except Elpis, the goddess of hope? Or so the myth goes.
A blind hope.
What do you mean?
Humans cannot predict when death will come for them. This is why they have hope. I was wrong, and I am plagued by guilt. Happiness cannot be achieved at the expense of others. I think that's enough for today.
Why did you accept my request for an interview? Who is that? Is that one of your subjects?
Of course not. She was alone in the world. I took her in to make amends.
Is she
perfectly normal? Just an average child needing a home. She is my hope. Aren't you beautiful? Would you like to hold her?
Oh, okay. She's adorable. What's her name?
Grace.
That's right. Grace and the girls from the orphanage were never related. And Elpis? Well, it seems like it's the opposite of a weapon, as it's named after the goddess of hope, the only thing that remained once Pandora's box was opened. Elpis is Spencer's way of atoning for his sins, however that may be. I've heard some people say this doesn't make sense given his final talk with Wesker before being killed, where he's still a megalomaniac in search of godhood. But I'd say it makes perfect sense that he'd still feel guilty for the outbreaks he did not mean to occur. You have to remember that the training facility, the mansion, Raccoon City, none of it was orchestrated by him. Sure, he created these BOWs, but his primary focus was benefiting himself at the cost of others, not meaningless death. That's at least how I see it, A man at the end of his life, realizing he can still do some good, even if he knows he can't change who he is. That's why he gives Grace away to live a normal life, and in my opinion, chooses to die to what is likely the only man he saw as his own son. He just wanted to be done. That and, well, maybe another more selfish interest we're not quite privy to just yet. This is obviously a lot of information for Grace to process, but she has little time to think about it, as she gets a system warning showing her Leon collapsing on the floor after throwing up blood. That's it. Final stage. He'll be a dead man within minutes. Once you gain control of Grace again, you can inspect the other 2 files on the disk. The first are the interview notes, where we see that maybe Spencer's goal wasn't just for himself, but more akin to Wesker's, of advancing all of humanity forward in that evolutionary step. And given his lack of response when asked about human experimentation, it shows I may be right when it comes to him regretting his methods, but not his cause. The other file is a letter from Patrick, Spencer's butler. It informs Alyssa of his last will, which is mostly unintelligible rambling aside from a single passage, leaving Grace in the care of Alyssa, showing he was so certain of this that he put whatever remained of his sane mind to make sure this was done. I'm still not 100% sure why Alyssa of all people. My best guess is he heard of her actions during the Outbreak games and figured she'd keep Grace safe from not only people, but BOWs too, as he likely guessed people would come looking for her. Okay, rescue time. Stepping out of the archives, I felt like I was immediately transported into the Spencer estate, with a sudden architecture shift. This was Spencer's study, containing some interesting memorabilia, like the giant steel balls from the DLC of 5, and what looks to be a portrait of Mother Miranda. They were rather close after all. I really like the droning theme played here, as Grace makes her way to Leon.
Oh, Leon!
It seems our boy is still alive, but just barely.
I was just resting my eyes.
Huh. Guess he picked up a thing or two from Ada.
I was just resting my eyes.
Shouldn't sleep on the job.
Grace tells Leon she doesn't know the password, but Leon is fine with this. After all, any password will do the trick to destroy Elpis. Grace, on the other hand, begins placing things together, and realizes what Elpis really is. I love how arrogant Zeno is here to let the two walk up close to him without feeling in any danger whatsoever. Grace negotiates Leon's life in exchange for releasing Elpis, and Zeno accepts. And here we get something very interesting. A choice. The only other Resident Evil game to do this was 7, with one ending being the clear bad, non-canon one, while the other is the real ending. Well, here we get the same thing. Throughout the entire game, you slowly start to realize Elpis was never a virus, but instead something good, so destroying it leads to the bad ending, and releasing it to the canon one. Somehow I saw a lot of people miss this and choose to destroy Elpis, which I find unbelievable that you can miss such obvious context clues. But yeah, let's talk about that bad ending first, and save the canon one for the proper ending discussion. In short, this bad ending sucks. Not in the this was written poorly way, but in the this will make you feel like crap way. Grace will type the password destruction, which causes the facility to begin creaking as it starts to collapse. Zeno grabs Grace, but Leon saves her, and gets her out before it's too late. However, he himself stays behind. And I really wish you got to fight Zeno in this ending, but it's just a cutscene. Leon, of course, doesn't stand a chance with him, barely hanging on. And Zeno, being on the same level as Wesker, quickly dispatches him. Leon will then tell Grace,
"At least I could save you."
And Zeno will pull out his gun that blew apart the people from the BSAA squad. And so we have to watch as Grace cries out, and Zeno points it at Leon's face and pulls the trigger. Honestly, kinda ballsy having your fake ending be this brutal. cause I saw the people who chose it say they didn't want to play the game anymore. Which, lucky for them, they won't have to, as the game then cuts very abruptly once Grace makes her way up to the rescue helicopter. And yeah, that's it. Not even the cool credits. Just standard ones with a droning theme to really emphasize you made the wrong choice. Okay, now for the real ending. This entire game has been about this. Spencer's Requiem. Elpis and its hope. That's what this game is really about. Hope. The hope to do better. To not let the past define the person you are today, and to change for the better. We see it in Leon losing himself to this illness, but regaining his strength to keep going after coming across his regrets. We see it in Grace as she doesn't want to lose someone else after losing her mother and feeling alone. Hell, we even see it in Spencer, trying to somehow undo the harm he has done in the hopes of making a better world for Grace. So of course, the real password is exactly what Elpis is all about. Hope. That seems to have done it, as all three characters look around at the facility not blowing up around them. The pod begins unlocking, and someone joins the three just out of frame. Leon is understandably confused as to why Grace would release a weapon like Elpis. But before she can explain what it really is, Zeno brushes her aside, eager to get his hands on what he's been searching for all this time. And while yes, he promised Leon's life would be spared, he said no such thing about using him as his first subject to this new mind-controlling power. So he injects himself in order to become even stronger. Unfortunately, Elpis is the opposite of a virus, as we see his infection marks quickly disappear and the truth is revealed. Elpis is the mother of all antivirals, Spencer's atonement, as well as his last middle finger to the people who caused his downfall. As now, all other companies relying on viral warfare would fall along with him. Zeno is angered by all this and tries to attack Grace, but Leon rushes him, and without Wesker's powers, well, Zeno is just a regular guy. It is now that Victor reveals himself again, taking his mask off and showing us those beautiful yellow eyes of his. We now get a brilliant acting performance between Victor and Zeno as they argue over this new information. Victor very much sticking by Spencer's side and wanting to carry out his plan, while Zeno starts insulting him.
Do you know how much time and money I wasted on this?
Don't you see the genius? With Elpis, all virus-based weapons are useless. The world order will be thrown into chaos.
We wanted a weapon.
Instead, Spencer gave us anarchy. I will carry his torch and bring his vision to life.
You? You and Spencer were a means to an end.
Yet he outwitted you all.
Spencer defied us and paid the price with his life. He was nothing.
You are nothing but an imitation.
It's over, Victor. The Connections is done with you!
Yeah, that might be my favorite cutscene of the game. I love the little sad expression Zeno gives when he's called an imitation of Wesker. It reminds me of the scene in Code Veronica, where he hears Alexia for the first time. Also, not much of a twist, but yes, Victor is in fact a BOW himself. And Grace, realizing he can't have Elpis without sending the world into chaos, she does the reasonable thing of curing Leon so he can take care of things. This works almost instantaneously, with Leon's bruises quickly disappearing. Victor then puts in the wrong password himself to send the whole place crashing down now that he has a sample. Leon is a bit confused since he was out of it for the most part, dying on the floor. But now that him and Grace are in danger, he immediately locks in, dropping steady on his feet and his posture immediately getting better. While he can't find Grace, he does come across Victor, giving us the final boss of the game, as we kill the last living remainder of Umbrella.
Time to bury Umbrella's last skeleton.
This fight is great. Victor has a solid foot on Leon's height, Yet when you stun him, Leon can still send him ragdolling with no issues. Victor's main attacks will revolve around using his tentacle arm, but once you get him angry enough, he somehow powers up and gathers electricity around him. Holy shit, this is so cool. He can discharge this electricity in these awesome blasts, and eventually even use a rocket launcher on Leon, which, of course, you are able to parry. You can also stun him and cause him to drop said RPG to use it against him. This will end phase 1, with Victor mutating further, and I love how his voices goes from human sounding to having this weird reverb to it. He seems to be in extreme pain as he moves closer to the edge before falling to his doom. Leon thinks that's that, but he's soon about to find out the real BOW Victor is.
Nemesis. You're so damn relentless.
That's right, one of the series' most classic monsters, a Nemesis. While the original Nemesis was a parasite being inserted into a tyrant, this one was inserted in a human, which allowed Victor to keep his intelligence and gain all the power. And just like the remake's Nemesis fight, you'll have to fight this huge wall of flesh and shoot out its weak spots. I know a lot of people aren't big fans of this in the remake, but me personally, I prefer it over the original's final fight. So seeing it return was pretty hype. And yes, of course, Leon can parry the huge Nemesis arms. Once you've destroyed enough weak spots, Victor will grab Leon. And remember how Jill needed a huge railgun to finish him off? Well, here's Leon's way of killing a Nemesis. The upscaling of this man's feats will never cease to amaze me. And then we get the pleasure of seeing him one-hand the Requiem, each shot blowing huge chunks off Victor. This is what Leon's power looks like now that he is infection-free. He's really going to be doing this till he's 90, isn't he?
You ain't getting back up.
What a way to kill him. Leon then turns his attention to finding Grace, before the place fully crashes down. He tries contacting Sherry, but he's too far underground for it. He finds Grace passed out and wakes her up, immediately trying to rescue her. It's no use, however. There are no exits left. The two of them realize this, and Leon does the best thing he can still do, and that is to offer her comfort in what could be their final moments. Each light begins shutting off one by one, until there's one left, and... yeah, baby! I didn't even need a single line of dialogue to recognize the Hound Squad's coats. This is Chris's rogue squad from Village. Umbra is his left-hand man, currently leading them, and here to deliver the cliffhanger-style scene we've been getting since 7.
Leon S. Kennedy? Depends who's asking. Alpha, you read me, sir? Yeah, they're safe. I got him. Yes, sir. Mr. Kennedy, I have a message from Captain Redfield.
That is so hype. And the game doesn't end there either, as we see Leon walking away from the wreck, sometime after they've been rescued. The place is now crawling with BSAA, which I'm not sure if they're the good or bad guys anymore, but someone checked and they do seem to still be using BOWs as soldiers, so who really knows?
Well, actually worked. Feel better than I have in ages.
Yep, until he's 90. Sherry is relieved that Leon is safe, and Leon assures her he's got another dose coming her way. The two then talk a bit about Chris and how much like after the mansion incident, he's kinda gone AWOL, with Leon not knowing where he is, but sure that they'll run into each other at some point. Resident Evil 10. Before he leaves, Leon decides to go and see how Grace is doing after all this, as he too knows what it's like to go through this stuff without anyone there to help you. He says it's over, and he hopes that's it when it comes to Umbrella. But since they decided to bring them back for this game, I'm sure they've already found a way for them to return in the future, as this evil pharmaceutical company is just too iconic. Grace's only regret is not having been able to save Emily, and that's when Leon reveals something. He never shot her vitals, and he's right. If you do try and shoot her during that segment in the game, Leon will always move the reticle away from her heart, never allowing the player to hit it, meaning she could still be alive. And now that they have Elpis, she could be fully cured. Hearing this sent me over the moon, as thinking she had died really upset me during the game's second half. So yeah, when Leon gave this little encouraging smile afterwards, I was overcome with joy. He then walks away, disposing of the gloves he was using to hide his infection, and immediately puts on a ring. A wedding ring, no less. I don't want to get into the debate of who he's married to, as I've seen countless theories online, but the only real options are Ada and Claire, if we're being honest, with both sharing moments throughout the franchise. The main point for Claire is that Chris personally sent his squad to rescue Leon, so it could be seen as him rescuing his family. But you have to remember they already have a history as friends, and Chris's right-hand man explicitly said he had a message from Chris, meaning he likely needed his help for something in the future. And the evidence for Ada? Well, it kind of speaks for itself, with her being in every game he is in, aside from this one, and even being in one of the CGI movies. Hell, last we saw of Leon in the games, he was holding on to her compact mirror in hopes to give it back one day. Me personally, I think it's Ada, and we'll see more from them in the game's now confirmed story expansion. Rumors say it's what Leon's been up to during the events of 7 and 8, so maybe we'll see Leon and Ada finally getting together after 28 years of a will they, won't they. Back to the game, we see news reports on the discovery of Ark and the entire conspiracy finally crumbling down. And the last shot in the game? A girl was rescued from the care center. Emily. What an ending. And hey, we even get the cool credits I asked for in the last video. Before I start my final thoughts on the game, let's skip forward to the end credits scenes. The first shows a parallel to the game's opening, with Grace at her office. But now, instead of being focused on her report, she's instead distracted, chatting with Leon about what's been going on in their lives. As Grace managed to adopt Emily, it seems, as she's now teaching her to read, and Elpis solved her blindness side effect. Again, the director pops up and asks for the report she was writing since the start. And we get a nice look at two pictures Grace now keeps on her desk. She and her mother, alongside Emily and herself. And you can actually read the report Grace wrote. It's a 60-page document going over huge additions to the lore, the main part of it being the Connection's involvement behind almost everything that has happened in the franchise up until now. The other funny thing here is Wesker being a witness in the trial despite his less than legal actions at the time. Like, if he was actually there in person, I just know him and Chris were on the verge of murdering each other the entire time. The second scene is back at Ark, where we see a dead BSAA soldier as agents from the same organization Hunk was with move past. They stop next to something and report they have retrieved the objective, before picking something up, and the game finally ends. There's a lot of speculation regarding what this could have been, from Xeno's head to another Elpis sample. I definitely think they were after Xeno, as they're not done trying to bring Wesker back, and I believe that will be the plot for the next game. From rumors, we know the next games they are remaking are the ones featuring Wesker within them, and Chris returning as the protagonist would also make sense for him to find his own personal nemesis. Not to mention the fact that Wesker's sister is still out there after having successfully transferred her own memories. I hope the next game is again a mix like this one, but with more characters, such as Grace returning for more tense parts, alongside characters like Rebecca or Claire, as her sections in Revelations still felt pretty close to survival horror, while the more action-heavy characters like Leon, Chris, and Jill deal with Wesker more head-on. Hell, bring back Carlos and put Sherry on the field. Basically, make Resident Evil 6, but good this time. Okay, so originally this is where I'd give my final thoughts, but very shortly after the game's release, we got the announcement of a free expansion called Leon Must Die Forever. A roguelike minigame where you play through the main areas of the game and try to rack up the highest score possible under a time limit. The name of this mode is based on Resident Evil 7's Ethan Must Die, which in turn is based on Devil May Cry's Dante Must Die difficulty. While a lot of people, myself included, were expecting a Mercenaries mode, this is pretty fun as well, as the lack of different characters to play is made up for gimmicks this mode offers. Rather than starting with a set loadout and having to only use set guns, this mode will always start you off with the same weapon, and you'll then have to find weapon cases or defeat certain enemy types in order to get a random weapon from the base game. These will come in multiple tiers that correspond to how good they are or how much damage they deal, meaning you'll want to explore as much of the level as possible in order to find these, but that wouldn't work very well with a low time limit, and that's where these spiders come in. These, like the weapon cases, are hidden in predetermined spots around the level, and shooting them will grant the timer with the corresponding amount of seconds. Meaning, after a certain amount of runs, you'll have a route that hits as many of these spots as possible linearly to make sure you never run out of time. Something very much needed in higher difficulties, as each time you complete a run, you'll unlock its next difficulty tier. And while weapon tiers don't matter too much in the base difficulty, a couple difficulties later you'll find your starting pistol to feel powerless against standard enemies. The other main gimmick introduced in this mode is random modifiers you can purchase after killing a certain amount of enemies. You will start every run with an item similar to the blood collector Grace had. This will automatically grant you with the enemy's blood, which can be used to select one of 3 modifiers, ranging from specific weapon type damage increases, or refilling hatchet and health bars, as the hatchet can't be resharpened in the usual way in this mode. All the way to more absurd things, such as setting enemies on fire with melee attacks. These passive upgrades may not seem like much, but they add up over time, and rarer ones provide a meaningful change to the entire run, especially those focused on restoring health, as higher difficulties will see your health drop down to 0 very quickly, especially when dealing with the new enemy types. Every now and then, you will encounter an enemy that's been highlighted in either red or blue. These enemies are resistant to regular damage, and require specific things in order to be taken down. Blue enemies are resistant to all damage, until they are parried, which will grant you a brief window where they are now vulnerable to all damage types. Red enemies, on the other hand, are much more annoying to deal with, as the only damage they are not resistant to is explosions and melee weapons. These two enemy types become very problematic as the difficulty is raised, as weapons other than the high damaging rifles and magnums will become pointless against them if the conditions to make them vulnerable are not met. And when things like the hatchet or ways to cause an explosion become finite, it means you could potentially be locked out of even damaging certain enemies without wasting large amounts of ammo, which, if you walk into the wrong room at the wrong time, means your run will be over, no matter how many headshots you get in a row. These deaths are rather frustrating, especially in the middle of a run that seems to be going really well. While this is a pretty bad downside, the rest of the mode more than makes up for it with its high replayability, as I now have well over a dozen hours on it. Hopefully, with the story expansions being revealed soon, we'll see either new levels, characters, or modifiers being added to make it even more replayable. And to be honest, I wouldn't mind a game that combines this, previous games as Mercenaries, and many of the minigames in 7, the basement one in particular, being very similar to this one. I feel like Resident Evil has a knack for making these, and I would love to see more from them, with a multitude of characters from the series making a return, as I feel like that would do much better than the online games they kept trying to push. Okay, now it's time for my final thoughts on the game as a whole. Resident Evil Requiem was truly a fantastic entry in the series. Whilst I'm happy Leon did not die in this game, I think they definitely earned their send-off had they gone through with it. I feel the same way as I felt about Chris in 6. I'm happy we'll get more content from some of the best characters in the series, but them dying wouldn't have upset me either. Also, listen to that banger playing in the credits. So good. There are so many positives to this game, it would take ages to list them all. But the biggest improvement on this one, by far, is its story, characters, and acting, as it feels like a huge step up from previous entries, and it definitely felt like they were testing this style and tone with the remake of 4, taking some of its moments more seriously. Again, I will mention how good Grace's character was, especially if I'm right about her parallels with Leon, and her potentially taking over from him. I'm telling you, all she needs is that Chris Redfield training Claire and Ethan got, and she'll be golden to start roundhousing zombies too. The other major aspect of this game was how polished the care center was. I mean, the only other building I hold with this much regard in gaming is the RPD from the remake of 2, as they're both so carefully thought out to make you feel like you're never really backtracking, but instead finding more and more rooms in this huge puzzle box you have to solve. And I hope the developers see this positive response and continue implementing this in future games, as that is what keeps this series feeling fresh. While the second half unfortunately highlighted some of the issues in the game, as the level design didn't feel as polished as the norm from this series, almost returning to a Resident Evil 6 level of action and absurdity, I still had plenty of fun with it, and that first half definitely more than makes up for it. I still haven't decided where I'm placing it amongst the other games in the series, but it's definitely already a top 5, and with more content on the way, I have a feeling it may sneak its way onto the top 3. I can't quite put into words what this and every other game in the series means to me. But to give you some idea, I refused to play Resident Evil Village on a PS4 and waited until I had a PS5 to play it with. And if you remember, those were rarer than diamonds back in the day. We all waited around 5 years for this game, and it finally being here still feels surreal, as I sit here and write this script. I am already anxiously waiting Capcom's next announcement, as they've been on a winning streak with their games for quite some time now, and their leaked roadmap shows us a promising future for the franchise. If it wasn't clear already, this game was a 10 out of 10 for me. And I think it stands a fair shot at winning Game of the Year, as GTA 6 launches too late to be nominated, and the only serious competition I see as of writing this is Control Resonant, as Remedy 2 has been on a promising streak with their latest titles. Okay, I had an absolute blast making this video, and hopefully you enjoyed watching it too, so maybe consider liking and subscribing, as it really does help me out and motivates me to keep bringing you videos like this. With that being said, I'll see you guys next time.